fellow slows, hoes, ugly blokes, and millennial jokes, and welcome to the Bastards of Gaming podcast, episode number 19. I'm your host with the most, Xizor, joined by my co-host, the maple syrup to my French toast, the baby mode to my Sekiro, SynthR.
We hit the big time. We made the news. Guess what, everybody? We hit the news and we're on a shitty fucking tabloid site. With such headliners as Home Alone fans fuming at Disney bosses as they plan to remake iconic film. And it was too hot. Train rage mom defends bursting into driver's cabin. It's just like all this like horse shit tabloid garbage news. But anyway, the headline for the article was fans demand, and demand is in caps, one key change from Blizzard. Okay, and then it goes through all this shit about Diablo 4 and how people are upset about it. And all I did on Reddit was just post one of our videos about the Diablo 2 and 3 soundtrack. And I said that the Diablo 4 soundtrack needs to be written by Matt Uelman, who did Diablo 1 and 2. And that just incited a bunch of like people getting pissed off, a bunch of people saying, yeah, we have to do that. We have to get him back because he's Diablo. He's the sound of Diablo. And then this fucking guy, what is his name? Lloyd Combs writes an article about how Diablo fans are outraged over the music. And if you read the Reddit topic, we're not really outraged. It's just there's people saying like, who gives a fuck? It's music. There's other people like, well, he's not going to come back. Who cares? And then there's people like, yeah, he needs to come back. And it wasn't that big of a deal.
How are people already outraged over music in a game that doesn't exist?
I don't know. Because one of the arguments was the Matt Uelman composer guy didn't get asked yet for Diablo 4. And how do we even know that? Maybe he's already doing the soundtrack. We don't know. It just incited like a bit of an argument and apparently turned into a news article. So whatever, it got us some views.
Well, whatever it takes to fucking whore ourselves out there, get ourselves out there. This is an international news site, so we're fucking global at this point, son.
I guess so.
All right, so other than the great news that we're fucking news stars now, we got a special guest on the show today, personal friend of mine. The dynamic of the show is going to be kind of interesting because SynthR doesn't know this friend of mine. It's the first time they actually met. It's a few minutes ago, so interesting dynamic. We usually have mutual friends on, so this is going to be kind of fun. But I'm going to introduce NotHollowed. What's up, bro?
Yo, what's up?
Yeah, so I guess we're going to call you Hollowed.
Yeah, that's fine. Hollowed, either way.
Hollow, okay. Yeah, so me and Hollow, we met probably about 10 years ago. We worked at GameStop together, so that's kind of our history. That's where we met. You weren't the manager when I first started, but then after Cliff moved up the road to another store, you took over, and still one of the funnest people I've got to work under before, for sure. We
definitely had some good times at GameStop.
Oh man, working at GameStop was kind of fun at the time anyway, but then like you and some of the other people there just made it super fucking fun. Like as soon as I got to know you a little bit, I'm like, oh, this guy's like on my fucking level. Like we got the same kind of sense of humor, and like now we're just gonna be fucking off in here all the time, like doing dumb shit, being silly.
And that's what happens.
And then like I was like, yep. And then we've been friends ever since because I'm like, this guy's just fucking on my level. So, but yeah, I'm glad to have you on here. We've been wanting to have some different people that we don't normally talk to or converse with, and I've always had you in mind to be on the show because you have like kind of a different sort of taste in what you play in games and stuff like that. I always thought you would bring like a kind of interesting element to the show. So happy to have you on, brother.
I appreciate it.
Welcome. So this past week, we've had some horrific mass shootings in Texas and Ohio. And guess what? Somebody had to blame video games yet again. I am so sick of this shit. And hearing about it and someone pointing fingers at something that doesn't even make any fucking sense. This dickhead Texas politician, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, appeared on Fox News and said a bunch of horse shit about video games and gun violence. So I quote, "What's changed in this country? We've always had guns. We've always had evil. But what's changed where we see this rash of shootings? And I see a video game industry that teaches young people to kill. Patrick continued with, "This was maybe a video game to this evil demon, a video game to him. He has no sense of humanity, no sense of life. He wanted to be a super soldier for his Call of Duty game." What a dumb fucking idiot. We've always had guns and evil, but video games are the only change of society. He needs to fire whoever wrote this fucking statement and then slam his face through the window. Video games do not make people racist, homophobic, sexist, or any more violent than people already inherently are. And always have been since the dawn of fucking time. Violence has existed before guns, and I'm sorry, but that's the fucking truth. We're animals. If someone is racist and wants to roleplay racism in a game, that's happening in their fucking head and not on the screen. None of these games teach you to be racist, nor can they teach you to shoot a gun. Everyone already knows how a fucking gun works. It's not a hard device to operate. These people walk into a crowded area and just shoot. They're not fucking Navy SEALs rappelling down from the ceiling in Walmart to take out Sally in the chip aisle. If guns teach you how to shoot, then I'm ready to perform brain surgery because I played fucking Surgeon Simulator. I'm ready to fly a fighter jet, be a cowboy, suck Bowser's mushroom dragon dick. Like, it's fucking stupid. Nobody is planning a mass shooting in a fucking commercial video game. If someone were a game designer and created levels to look exactly like an area that they're going to be in to commit this heinous act, that's a different story. But anyone can create these simulations in real life, on paper, or in a fucking AutoCAD drawing. This isn't exclusive to a video game. These mentally deficient people fantasize about this stuff in their waking lives. Get this idea out of your fucking head that game developers are creating these supervillains. Like, people are being persuaded into becoming the Joker or Thanos by playing a video game. There are facts and statistics and arguments already countering all these claims that go back decades. So I don't even know why we even have to defend this shit. So even if you look at this logically, video games simply do not allow these shitbags to hone their craft, nor does it implant ideas into their head any more than movies, books, television, or the fucking news, which reports and gives these fucking dregs of society a pedestal to stand on for their 24 hours of infamy. Stop giving these assholes some measure of glory. I'm Canadian and gun laws are different here, but I grew up around guns. Lots of fucking guns, okay? My dad was a responsible gun enthusiast. There are laws in place to make them responsible. The guns were always locked up and I wasn't even able to access them. I shot guns with him at the range. I learned to respect the gun. I played video games since I was 4 years old, and obviously video games have not turned me into a fucking gunslinger, sniper, or mass murderer. I don't fantasize about killing people. I don't carry a gun around. I don't even have much of an interest in them, even though my dad has passed away and I've inherited literally like 20 fucking guns that I could start a militia with. So when you have these trash figureheads in place saying racist shit and homophobic stuff on TV, or these little micro communities that all talk to each other on the internet, you know hillbilly fucking Jim out there on the old farm is watching his TV, reading between the lines, and hears "kill everyone who isn't white and likes dick." These people, although few, are fucking insane, and we're waiting for any sign, any fucking sign, to pull that trigger on a gun they had easy access to. Now, I'm not solely blaming anyone in particular in my example. It could come from aliens that visited them last night, a fucking cloud that they saw in the shape of a gun up in the sky, a dream where Jesus whispered a manifesto into their ears, whatever the fuck. It's not goddamn video games causing these problems. Maybe look at gun control, a novel fucking idea. Maybe look at socioeconomics and poor education. Maybe nobody takes mental health seriously enough and lets these murderers fall off the map to the point of acting out like this. Maybe gun control again for the third time. Maybe every single one of us is to blame for these events because we're all preoccupied with ourselves and can't be bothered to work toward a sensible solution that's literally right in front of our face, like gun control. Just own this issue and change it instead of pointing fingers at the Second Amendment and spinning our wheels in the blood of the fallen. This is ridiculous. I don't have a concise point to all this or an inkling of an idea as to how to fix it, but leaders and influencers on all levels need to stop misdirecting everyone by giving the masses something to loosely fixate their hatred on. Video games are not that thing. People need to realize that there's something systemically wrong with how someone can easily just obtain these firearms, the amount of civil unrest there is in the world, how much fear people have of things that they shouldn't fear, the stress people are always under, the internet and how it changes people's perception of how insignificant we actually all are, and this groundswell of mental issues that everyone nearly suffers from now. It's just ridiculous. So this isn't so cut and dry to say that video games are the problem, and these politicians need to fuck right off.
Yeah, no, I mean, you kind of summed it up for the most part there. I thought, this might turn into a big discussion. Although I have to say, I almost fucking died laughing at the thought of Navy SEALs rappelling down to Walmart and killing Sally in the chip aisle. But yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it there. I didn't know, I wasn't prepared for such a fucking precise speech. But yeah, I don't have much else to add, really. I mean, yeah, I kind of been upset with this whole thing that's been going on this past week too. I mean, of course, it was going to get political immediately, and I really didn't appreciate, as a Trump supporter, I didn't appreciate Trump coming out and blaming video games either. But yeah, it's just way more complicated of an issue than people make it out to be. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous to assume that a video game is training people to murder people, and it's like, it doesn't even make sense when you say it. Like, to somebody it probably does, but it doesn't to me, especially since I've been playing video games forever. I could shoot a gun. Anybody could shoot a gun. I'm not great at it. It didn't teach me to kill. You just point a gun at someone and kill them. That's it. You can watch a movie and get it.
Yeah, I mean, video games give you the basic idea of what it's like to shoot a gun, but like, it's nothing like actually shooting a gun. So
no.
The guns aren't training you to do anything. I don't know, man. It's a complicated thing that, maybe we'll do a topic about one day. And I don't know. You got anything, Hollowed, to add to this?
Definitely a couple of things that SynthR hit that have bothered me. And I think the biggest one for me is the way that we as a society now deal with mental health care and insurance, big pharma, all that shit's its own thing that falls right into this, in my opinion. But yeah, I have had a Glock sitting on my desk for right next to my console, as a matter of fact, for over 6 years. And guess what? It's never been used. I go to the gun range occasionally. I can shoot. I've done it since I was a little kid. My dad taught me how to respect firearms from the very beginning, me and my brother both. So yeah, that shit it blows my mind how easily people succumb to that rhetoric. Like, yeah, we're just going to immediately jump on this train. And, the ability to obtain firearms, yeah, easy, of course. Background checks, all those things have been done forever. Hasn't been happening. I'm sure there's some things that they could change. There always is in just about anything we do. I think another problem, though, is what you were saying about the grandstanding for these murderers, giving them screen time, talking about them endlessly for days. Why? I mean, this creates the copycat syndrome, Like, we immediately open the gate and you see other people going, well, I was that kid in school that got shoved in a locker, peed on, bucket of dip was, dumped on my head, and I never got a pat on the back. And this guy went and killed these people, and now he's famous. Like, that's the mentality I feel like it feeds into, and it drives me nuts. And so, yeah, media, massive issue. Politics shouldn't be anywhere near it unless they're planning on actually devoting some sort of time, some sort of financial services towards making mental health care more accessible. I feel like it's dude, look, I'll be right out and honest about it. I take anxiety medication and medication for OCD. All right. I've taken them for about 15 years now. I own a firearm. I've never had the urge to haul off and shoot somebody. I've never had a round chambered the whole time I've had it sitting on my desk because why? I don't ever want to have to do something like that. Even if someone broke into my house, the last thing I'd want to do is have to pull the trigger on that person because you have to live with that for the rest of your life. So, making these assumptions that, or even just directly blaming video games, like, I mean, violence is violence. We've been warring since we were put on the earth, however that happened. So it's nothing new. It really isn't. And, like I said, given time to these murderers all throughout the media, Twitter, Facebook, is one of the worst things I feel like we could do. And we do it every single time.
Yeah. And, people are getting sort of kind of radicalized and siphoned off into their own little lanes online, and social media creates a lot of problems, and the news and how everyone's hyper political. I mean, there's a lot to this, and it was very tempting to do this as a topic this week, and I was even skeptical about even touching it in the intro here because we could go on about this for fucking ever. But even though it's a vastly important and interesting topic. Yeah, what happened this past week, it's crazy, it's tragic. It's something that I wish didn't happen, but it's not going to stop. And video games aren't the culprit, and there's just a lot more to it. But in the interest of moving the episode along here, I'm just going to give the rundown of the show this week, tell you about the topic of the week that we're actually going to do, which is how important is difficulty and challenge in games. After that will be the what the fuck we're playing. We got a lot of games on the list this week after taking a couple weeks off. And with Hollow on the podcast, we've got Wolfenstein, Youngblood, Monster Hunter, Hunt Showdown, Wolfenstein Cyber Pilot, Drive Club VR, Wipeout VR, DayZ, Hob, Battlefield 5, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and Dark Souls 3. And then after that will be followed up by the questions and answers as always. Now, this podcast is available on all podcasting platforms such as iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Music, and tons more. And lastly, our YouTube channel is fully operational and hosts full episodes, segment clips, and smaller highlights from our shows. Simply search Bastards of Gaming on YouTube and be sure to hit the subscribe button while you're there to stay up to date. All right, topic of the week this week is how important is difficulty and challenge in games. Now, I think video games were originally sort of designed to be more difficult to keep the player coughing up quarters for arcade machines. And because games were so hard back then, there came a certain level of pride and bragging rights about beating games or getting as far as you could or achieving the highest score that I think became a core tenet of gaming early on. And some of us that grew up in that era either embraced that mantra or they didn't. But I think eventually once games moved over to home consoles, difficulty was seemingly added to make games longer in order to justify the high price point versus putting quarters in arcade machines for a cheap thrill. Some people think, Nintendo purposely made some of their early NES games harder, so you would have to call into their Nintendo Power Line, which was like a telephone hotline where you could talk to gameplay counselors with insider knowledge that would give you tips and tricks and stuff like that. And then over time, games have sort of skewed more towards the casual market because companies think this is where the real money is. And, maybe they're not wrong. I mean, there's definitely a huge casual market out there. We saw that with the Wii when that came out and stuff like that, mobile games. Yeah, so the super challenging games aren't really the mainstay they once were. And, which is why From Software titles and other games like Neo and Salt and Sanctuary and Super Meat Boy have become hugely popular over recent years because hardcore gamers kind of saw this as a return to form for video games. But, there's psychological and philosophical value from overcoming challenges in games. I think as human beings, we all like accomplishing goals and finishing tasks and overcoming difficult challenges. So the main sort of thrust of this conversation where we will kind of build off from is, should games like Dark Souls stick to a strict regimented rule set in order to, maintain its niche popularity and gamer cred, or should all games be more accessible? Should the spirit of masocore games, as they're sometimes called, be preserved through brutally difficult mechanics and game design, or can there be more expansive options so that, more people can play them? So I'm just going to kind of open up the floor here to Hollow and let you kind of give us your rundown of what you think about this whole thing.
Well, for me, it's not always a necessity, even though occasionally I feel like I sound that way because I'm a huge From Software fan. Dark Souls in particular, it's my favorite gaming series. And that even transitions into Monster Hunter, which isn't as difficult as Dark Souls. But in general, for me, difficulty in games, I think, can be broken down a few different ways. It really starts with things like, how do you introduce the player to the game? How do you introduce the player to the mechanics? Are you dropping them into a situation where they have no fucking idea what's going on? And in that sense, I have, I don't really appreciate that type of design. I feel like without any type of idea, without any clue, you're artificially inserting difficulty, which would go back to what you were saying a second ago with, like extending gameplay, making things feel longer because they're harder. Now, for the sake of combat and, maybe maneuvering your way through the game and its levels, I feel like, yeah, fucking crank it up, man. Let's make it hard. Like, I want it to be difficult. Because for me, and I feel like a lot of other people that follow into that category with the seemingly niche hardcore gaming, is the achievement, like I fucking did it, or if I have friends that are playing a game as well, it's like I did it before them, and yeah, bragging rights. Goes back to the days in the arcade, like getting higher scores than my dad did in Galaga when I was a kid. Difficulty can come in a lot of different ways, and I feel like the mainstay needs to be in the mechanics of the game, not how you bring the player into the game. I feel like we've got enough games out there that offer settings for difficulties and things of that nature, and that if you're having too many issues getting through a certain game, like for instance Sekiro or Dark Souls, or anything in that field, Super Meat Boy, Jesus Christ, like the platforming genre, 2D games, Castlevania, Metroid, those have been known for being difficult. Mega Man, they've been around forever. They're nothing new, and there was no difficulty setting. Ninja Gaiden, you didn't go down and select easy. So I got used to that, and I think it's a lot of it's generational. I think most people that grew up in arcades transitioned back and forth between consoles early on. Nintendo, Sega Genesis, things like that. They were used to that. They didn't need to start off at a lesser difficulty than intended from the start, from the beginning of the game, whatever the developers had set in. So, yeah, I feel like the biggest aspect of it is drop me in, show me what I'm doing, and outside of that, just let me go. Let me explore. Let me figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's not super popular, and I understand it, but at the same time, I feel like if it's that difficult, then it's not for you. I mean, that may sound like a shitty thing to say, but if you're having those type of issues with the game, then that's why that's why we have as many as we do. There's a game for everybody. There's multiple games for everybody. So if you're struggling that much with it, then it's probably just not your cup of tea. I mean, that's how I see it.
It doesn't stop people from complaining and asking for the game to be easier, even though it's a core part of the game.
That's true. And unfortunately, I feel like developers nowadays are giving in too much to,
I agree.
A few posts on Reddit.
And I think some of the sympathizers are the people that are trying to sort of make this an accessibility debate. Like I'm wondering if some of these games journalists aren't coming at this from the guise of like, oh, we just want it to be easier for disabled people to be able to play these games, which is a totally valid concern and everything like that, and we should have more accessibility and more options so that everyone can play games in that sense. So it kind of gets a little convoluted. If you're just asking for an easy mode because you can't play the game, that's kind of different than someone who just like physically can't play it. And so you never really know where people are kind of ultimately falling on this, or where they're trying to sort of build their argument around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at it that way, when I see someone like professional Street Fighter players like Brawly Legs, Jesus Christ, this guy plays in professional tournaments at Evo. He does well using his mouth. I mean, literally using his mouth. So accessibility, sure, and that's another thing. It is convoluted. They lump these things together instead of separating them as they should to discuss them.
Yeah.
And they take these pleas and the cries of the gamers out there that can't deal with this difficulty, or difficulty in its own, not in the way of accessibility, just pure gaming difficulty, like mechanic difficulty.
Yeah. So how would you feel if they added an easy mode or something to like Dark Souls? Like, how would you feel about that as a huge fan?
I would be really pissed off, because Dark Souls is something, even though a lot of it's methodical up until Bloodborne, which is another obvious favorite of mine, that required you to be more aggressive and not as methodical and paced in Dark Souls. From Software in those series and games like it, just going back to Neo, there's a reason for it, and they know they have a crowd. They know they have people that absolutely just fall in love with this. They theory craft, they build stories behind it, because that's a whole nother topic. You have to figure the story out. Like, that's even then it's its own difficulty. It's a whole nother thing, a whole nother branch. But I would be pretty fucking angry if From Software was like, yeah, Dark Souls 4, which isn't going to happen. They've already told us that. Well, let's just say Elden Ring, the new one, the new FromSoft coming out with George R.R. Martin behind it. It would just take away from the idea that I did anything, that I accomplished something that I knew was going to be fucking balls hard, before I got done with it.
That's kind of how these games became popular. They're like, that's the reason why they're popular. And so I feel like, probably with you, these are almost like sacred cows in a way. Like,
they are.
Don't touch these, but like also you can come at it from the other angle of like maybe even a business angle of, well, these companies could probably sell hundreds of thousands, millions of more copies if everyone could play them. Because for me, I've sort of been on a like a bell curve with difficulty in games where early on, like back in the old arcade days and NES and stuff like that, like the difficulty of those games back in the day kind of pushed me away. And I wasn't really a hardcore gamer when I was young because I just found the difficulty of a lot of these games to not be fun. And, as I got older and played a bunch of different games and got more into gaming, I sort of started to appreciate difficulty and challenge more. And I used to, for a while there, in like my mid-20s, I would always crank every game up to hard. And, I was really into competitive multiplayer and stuff like that. But now I'm sort of coming back down again where I don't have as much time for games and I just don't really like a whole lot of pushback from the difficulty. And that's just my personal choice. If I got 2 hours to play a game tonight, I don't want to spend them grinding on a boss or something like that. That's just not fun to me. And so for me these days, like, I haven't really played the Dark Souls. I played a fair chunk of Bloodborne and I tried Sekiro earlier this year. And I always go into them knowing that probably not for me and I'm probably going to bounce off of them. But that's okay. And I don't have to play every game out there to like feel like I'm a complete gamer, or I don't need the fucking gamer cred of like beating a Dark Souls. Like, it doesn't do anything for me. I think some people see these games as like, oh, I need to play this and I need to beat this because I won't be a hardcore gamer, or I'm not good if I can't do this. And I think there's some people out there probably like me that find these games difficult and they just like want to be able to play through them. And I understand the idea of like wanting to experience the game, because like with Sekiro, I love the way that game looked. I liked the style. I've kind of been wanting a Tenchu style game for a long time, and so we don't have a lot of really cool samurai like ninja games, and so I was like, well, I'm gonna jump into this because I thought it would be an easier game than the sort of Dark Souls stuff, and it turned out to be way harder. Like, I found this way harder than Dark Souls and Bloodborne, any of that stuff. So I get the sort of standpoint of like, would I have liked to play through all of Sekiro? Absolutely. But I just understood that it wasn't for me. And I could definitely grind on it and learn it and really get good at it. But I just didn't feel like I wanted to. And so at a certain point, like, you just got to be willing to put in the time on some of this stuff. And I think that's kind of what entices you about stuff like this. It's putting in the time to be fucking good at something like that. And I think that's a very important quality from some of these games. I mean, games are generally work that way. You definitely have to put in time to learn and get good at almost any game. But yeah, so I don't know. There's an interesting side of this where, like, I get that some people want to play and enjoy a game, and if it's like really difficult like Sekiro, I can understand why they might feel left out. But at the same time, this game isn't for you, or get good, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's where all this came from. Get good, son.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of the point is, look, I don't play Farmville, right? It's not for me. Is it accessible? It sure as fuck is to anyone and everyone, but I don't get anything out of that, right? Like, I don't feel like I've done anything. And this is just my personal achievement, the feeling of overcoming something. And I don't personally brag about it unless someone asks. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, I fucking one-shotted that boss, which never happens. Yeah, I mean, it's for me, and I think I would speak for the majority of people that are into those games, in particular the From Software series, since it's just noted as being, they're always putting out games that are just so difficult. Spend the time, learning the boss, learning the area. And because a lot of the times by doing that and being forced through these areas of just stupid shit, like all these enemies shoot poison, they also cause bleed. The water is also poisonous. Like, fuck me. Can you put something else in there? Oh yeah, every platform is like 2 feet wide and you'll fall off and die. But then by doing that, like I've explored this area and oh look, because I decided to try to find a better route, I found, this fucking magic sword, whatever the case may be. So that's another form of gratification. And does it have to come in way of difficulty? No, it doesn't. But that's just the route I prefer.
Yeah.
So I'll agree with the whole argument of if it's not for you, don't play it. I do agree with that. I'm not a big fan of Dark Souls games. I played Demon Souls. I beat that. I beat the first Dark Souls, and that was it. It's too much sadism for me for that. And I do kind of wish it was a little bit easier because I did want to experience the game, but I do understand your argument of why should we dumb it down when it's not really about that. So one thing I want to ask you is if they did add an easy mode to say Dark Souls and somebody did play easy and they beat the game and they were saying, oh, I beat Dark Souls, would that really bother you that they beat it on easy?
I don't think it's a matter of necessarily bothering me so much as it's saying, don't tout that, because if I can beat it as it was designed, right? Like, it's standard setup, and we already know that is essentially hard because it's just like how we look at it now. Then yeah, it's, and also nowadays I don't think it's so much about bragging rights. I mean, unless you're doing something that's like in the competitive sports, esports and shit like that, then yeah, like you've obtained this level of skill, so you have a right to brag about something, if you will. I mean, I've never been the type to go down that road, but I mean, I used to be pro-am Counter-Strike player, and back when I was 18 years old, and the competition, that feeling of just going against somebody better than me, always it drove me. So when I got away from that and got into games like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, that just fed that. It fed that feeling of going against something that I hadn't gone against before, that was going to be a struggle. Just like with Counter-Strike, no matter what team we play, there was always going to be somebody else who was going to, one-tap me with a fucking AK from across the map, and I was going to go, okay, what did I do wrong? You know what I mean? Or is it just the fact that this person's better than me? So that in and of itself, that's a whole nother difficulty. Your difficulty level, you're dealing with, humans, not AI, so...
But what about, like, you could, I'm wondering if you could just add like little things in the game, like, we have like achievements and trophies. So if someone was like, oh, I beat Dark Souls, well, you didn't get the achievement for beating it on normal, like the normal difficulty level.
I was gonna say
or like, if you beat it the way the developers intended, just on this normal hard difficulty, you unlock this outfit or this weapon, and you could look into seeing if they actually played it on those difficulties. You know what I'm saying? If they played through it on easy, they wouldn't get as much reward out of it. And so yeah, you could say you beat it, but you don't have this trophy, you don't have this achievement, you don't have this item, you don't have this outfit, you don't have whatever it is that developers could do to show. I don't know, I'm thinking of interesting ways, and just playing devil's advocate a little bit here, that you could still have it both ways. You know what I mean?
Well, when you kind of look at it, think of like a game like Doom. It has multiple difficulties, right? Same with like any like first person shooter. And the higher the difficulty, the harder it is to kill people and the less health you have. So does anybody really like gloat about beating Doom on the highest setting, whatever it was, hell or whatever? Or can you just play it on easy and just enjoy the game still? Could I play Dark Souls where mechanically it's the same game, obviously, but I take less damage when I get hit, or if I fall into the poison, it doesn't take off as many hit points. It's a little more forgiving. So I would enjoy the experience more. But again, like I do understand, like the point of the game is to not be forgiving. So I totally understand. That's why I don't really play those games.
Yeah, I think something interesting now that I think about it, Demon Souls had a feature where you had world tendency. So you had the essential, standard route where you didn't do certain things and your tendency would be white. And that would make certain areas accessible, different weapons accessible. The difficulty of the game would still be there, but there were certain aspects that weren't as grueling. Now, if you went all the way to black tendency, it was, PvP and stuff like that. You invaded, you killed other players, you did stuff like that, killing NPCs. You also, again, had access to other weapons and things of that nature that you wouldn't if you were on a certain... it kind of changed the world. So that... I almost wonder now that we're talking about it, why that went away. Or at least some sort of mechanic that worked that way, because you could make it harder if you wanted. You could ride the normal road, or you could get a little bit of leeway, without having a true easy setting or medium or hard or whatever,
Well, even in like Dark Souls, and I think Dark Souls had this first. It was definitely in Bloodborne, where you could, summon in another player into your game to like help you take out a boss and stuff like that. Like, there's definitely little things like you could totally avoid that if you wanted to, and just go at every boss by yourself. But you could have that little bit of help. And so there's, certain games like Sekiro don't have that. I mean, there's already like little things like that in some of these games that kind of do already make it easier. Like, I've definitely seen people out there saying like, oh, you're just summoning other players into your game every time you want to take on a boss. Like, you're not really playing it. Like, you're not really taking on the challenge. But I don't know. There's just little things like that already exist to kind of make these games easier sometimes. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I actually have zero issue with that. And I think the main reason is because I also enjoy multiplayer experience. I will choose a co-op game over a single player game any day because I like to play with my friends. MMOs used to be my favorite genre just because there was, visual gloating, if you will. It's like, look at this shit that I got on my back here, this fucking axe. You know what I had to do to get that? That type of stuff. Or, I hit level whatever before these guys in my clan did or whatever. But yeah, as far as summoning and things of that nature, yeah, they do. They offer some flexibility in the difficulty of the game. Now, with Monster Hunter, I am extremely stubborn when it comes to that. Like, if there's a monster that shows up in the game I've never fought before I will play it with anyone else, I will beat it by myself. I've always been that way since the PlayStation 2 Monster Hunter came out, and across all of them on PSP. It's like, that's my personal goal, right? Like, I don't care about what everybody else does in that sense, but they also scale it. So like, if you go in with more than one person, the monster's health and damage goes up. Or usually, I think it's just health. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. So if you go in with a group of 4, well, it scales to the group of 4, but you still have 4 people that it has to target, 4 people that are doing damage to different areas. So it is offering up an easier solution than soloing it, right? So yeah, there are little things in the Soul series and in other games like it, that offer you a way to, bend it to your needs somewhat, like, by summoning somebody in.
I think we all have our sort of sacred cows in a way too. Like, mine is, I don't know, it's maybe a different example, maybe not the best, but like Halo. When I play Halo, like, I only want to play it on legendary difficulty. You know what I mean? And like, that's anything less to me is just like, I why bother? And so, yeah, I think we all have our sort of games like that where we want a very specific experience. And we've been kind of framing this all around, the From Software games, and that's its own interesting thing. But just speaking about things like more broadly, there's just, I don't know, it's kind of hard. Like, the more I thought about it this past week and the more I sort of read some stuff, it's kind of almost hard in a way to argue from the standpoint of, no, this game should be this way because I want it that way, and we should have this game be difficult. You should have to play it this way. You should have to beat this boss in this way. You can't change the difficulty. You can't get assists and all this other stuff. And I understand that there's value in that, and I don't want to necessarily take that away from people. But, it's just, the more I started looking at it, the more you start being like, well, I mean, what is it really taking away from me to allow other people options, And it's just kind of a hard place to argue from, like a hard point to argue from. I mean, other than just like a selfish sort of, this is my game series that I like and I identify with, and I don't want it to change. And it's just kind of hard to sort of break away from that in a way and sort of look at things more broadly sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just really hard to not say games should have more options. But at the same time, I look at Dark Souls and Sekiro and stuff like that, and I'm just like, yeah, that's just not for me, and I don't want that to be changed for the people that want that specific type of experience. So I don't know. What do you think about it, SynthR?
I can go both ways because I don't really play any games that are really like hardcore or masocore as they're called. Like I do like Metroidvania games and platformers like Guacamelee that have level designs that are so fucking hard that you gotta like keep practicing. I like games where you have to practice and be good at it to beat it. I don't like games where it's unforgiving just for the sake of being unforgiving, like having a bullet sponge boss or just like the thing can one hit you and you have to do everything perfectly during the boss fight or you're going to die in one hit and start from the beginning. I just want to be able to go at something, practice, and get better at it. And
yeah, that's an interesting point too, because like sometimes the difficulty is kind of artificial. Like with Dark Souls and stuff like that, it's a very well crafted experience to be difficult. Like it's not bullshit difficulty. It's very meticulously designed bosses and mechanics that make it difficult to play. And it's like you said, there's other things that are just like, I don't know, we just throw 100 guys at you in this fucking arena and, do your best. Like that's, I don't know, maybe sometimes that works out to make it more difficult or fun. And then, like you said, bullet sponge stuff too. Like, we're going to talk about Wolfenstein Youngblood and the topic after this, on what the fuck we're playing. And they made the enemies in that more bullet spongy to sort of counterbalance the fact that you're having a co-op partner in the game. And it just made the game not fun to me. And so, yeah, there's different ways in which you can tweak the difficulty or what, most games consider difficult. Like most games, when you change the difficulty, you're not really doing much else other than making yourself take more damage or less, or enemies having more health or less, or some variation on that where maybe this does more damage and that does less damage. And there's not too much in terms of like, it's pretty rare. I think Halo is one of the best examples of tweaking the difficulty, like sort of changes the way the AI works and stuff like that. Like they're more sophisticated. And so, yeah, there's different things where you're talking about difficulty too. Like, what does it mean for a game to be difficult? Is it just arbitrary bullshit, or is it like specifically designed gameplay mechanics and situations and battles or little, sort of arenas? Like you walk into a room and the developers specifically designed like, okay, we want this sniper up here on this ledge, and then we're going to have this tankier guy on the bottom, and it's well crafted to like give you a specific experience that you just barely make it through, with a little bit of your life left. Or is it just, I don't know, man, we just threw a bunch of stuff at you and we hope this is fun? Like, there's just it kind of goes all over the place as far as what difficulty means.
Right. So I respect what Dark Souls and Demon Souls and Bloodborne and all those games do, because they put a lot of thought into level design, how the sword is swung, the like tight passages, and you need like certain weapons or it clangs off the wall, like certain things, and the enemy types. Like I respect that because a lot of thought went into it. They didn't just throw like a skeleton guy down and they're gonna fuck you because they know you're gonna have a two-handed sword and you can't swing it because there's columns everywhere or some shit. Like I respect that. So like I said, like I don't want a game that's just hard because we're just throwing shit at you and you're losing health quicker or they have more health than you. I respect games that either are mechanically difficult, so like platforming's hard, or you have to figure out the boss pattern, or like I play a lot of strategy RPGs too, and a lot of the time you do end up losing on your first go round. It's not because the game is hard, it's because you didn't go into it strategically enough to figure out where to put your units and when to attack and when to use this and when to use that. So you learn the game and then you overcome it. That's gratification. Like I love getting gratification and reward and accomplishment out of that type of stuff. I don't want to be punished just for the sake of like extending the game, or it's hard for the sake of being hard. So a good example of this is with Dragon Quest XI, which I'm playing now. You can play the standard game, which is like any other Dragon Quest you've ever played, but in the beginning of the game you can activate options called draconian options. And basically what those are is they kind of like handicap your experience in the game. So like you can't flee, there's no shopping, you can't use armor, reduced experience from fights. There's a hard mode, which is like the bullet sponge thing. It makes everybody harder. There's one called Shy Pox, which is like your main character misses more often in fights. So you can turn these things on during the game too, just to make the experience more difficult, but the base game is still there. It's just now I'm deciding to kind of handicap myself. You've talked about it before, where you've played games like Ghost Recon Wildlands, and you want to turn off all like the tagging and the map and the GPS and all that stuff. You just want to go in and not know where anybody is. The game doesn't really completely let you do that, but you're doing this self-imposed handicap to make an experience that you want. And and what I'm talking about with Dragon Quest, that's actually a cool thing for an RPG, because usually it doesn't give you those options. Usually it's like, okay, maybe we'll put in like a thing where you can get double the experience so you level up quicker or whatever, but not to like really handicap you and make it harder for the person and more rewarding in return. So I just thought that was like an interesting way of making a game more difficult, but you have control over it. You don't have to have all those settings on. You can have some of them on, and it's just a new challenge.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to like customizing, being able to customize a game and having options and stuff that, I don't know. It's just like I said, I keep wanting to argue this whole thing from the standpoint of like kind of like what Hollow's been saying, from his love of like Dark Souls, of like, don't touch this thing. But like the more I just keep circling around it, the more I'm just like, I keep coming back to options. So I don't know. You got anything else to sort of add on this before we move on to the next part of this topic here?
I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of options. It's not. I understand where you're coming from completely. And let's just throw in Fire Emblem, for instance. If you play it on its standard, Fire Emblem series as a whole, I believe, has the option to play it standard, where if a character dies, they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the other mode that allows you to, just get them back after the battle or whatever. My first time playing Fire Emblem, I can't remember which one it was, but that experience for me was extremely frustrating, and it pissed me off a lot because you have your favorite characters just like in anything else, and to lose one, especially one you've been working on and you use a lot, it's really frustrating. But at the same time, overcoming the situation that you've been put in after that happens, like your key player goes down, but you still make it out, I get achievement from that. I get that sense of gratification. But I also think a lot of this is personal. I don't think it's as easy as broad stroking the entire genre of difficult games or masocore. I think a lot of it is personal, and the people in these communities, they have learned to expect something from these games, and when they change, and in the case of Soulsborne games, I can guarantee you that it would be an absolute shitstorm if we downloaded and installed Elden Rings and we see an option to play it on easy. And it's not to cut anyone else out. It's just that's what we expect. And, it's the same reason I play hardcore when I play, Call of Duty. Yeah, 1 bullet, 2 bullets, you're dead. There's limited HUD, or just like you were referencing Ghost Recon earlier. Same thing. But it's an option, right? So I understand it. I think when a game or a series has been built from the very first one forward the same way, it's really tough. That's a slippery slope to fuck around with and say like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna add this in here now because so many people bitched about it and had ass pain over it on Reddit, and now your core audience is fucking mad. So
yeah,
we've experienced that. We experienced that with Twisted Metal for years. Yeah. So we know exactly how that goes. But we felt entitled. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably the same thing. Honestly, it probably is just the entitlement. I couldn't tell you just because I don't spend much time in those groups. It's mostly just me and a couple of my friends. So we banter back and forth about it. Mm-hmm. Oh, I did this first. Oh, you're a pussy. You couldn't get through that. Shit like that. Mm-hmm. But that's really all there is to it for me. Personally, if they added a difficulty setting, I say I'd be pissed off. But if I'm being honest,
but you'd still play it and have your experience exactly the way you wanted to.
Right. The more
nothing would really change.
Yeah. The more we've discussed it, the more I can see where you guys are coming from. I'm not someone who's just wants to be a shitter about it just because, the principle of it. So.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think we all have those things where like, don't change this because it's precious to me.
This is my baby. Yeah,
this is my thing. This is my game series. I was here first. I was playing it from the beginning. This is my thing. Don't change it. I think we all have that. Another interesting element I was just thinking of in the moment, like for me personally, the reason why I sort of don't play a lot of challenging games these days is like a sort of anger issue. Like I don't want to get stressed out and angry when I'm playing video games.
Yeah,
that's not really that's not what I come to video games for anymore. Like life is already fucking shitty and stressful enough. Like when I'm playing, like when I'm playing video games, like I just want to be in a chill state now. And so, there's something about that too, where difficulty in games could translate to like really hyper intense emotions that sometimes you don't want to feel or you don't want to experience. I mean, we see that every time there's like fucking Evo going on. You see all these people at the height of fucking competitiveness, like getting mad at each other and getting in fights. And like, I get it. I've been through the whole range of them. Like I was super competitive in my 20s, like playing shooters and all this other stuff.
But it brings out that aggression though.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't want to feel that. Yeah. So I think that's another reason why I've sort of strayed away from super competitive, super hardcore games anymore. It's like, I'm just not here to be fucking pissed off. And I've broken controllers and shit in the past. And I just don't want to go down that road. And so, yeah, that's often why I just don't play difficult games, because I just don't want to feel those emotions. I feel them enough for other reasons. I don't need them related to video games for me.
I think they shouldn't make an easy mode. They should just add microtransaction. And one of them is like pay $300 and you beat the game. That's it.
Give it over to EA and that'll probably happen.
They could make you pay for the easy mode. That's what it should do.
It's like 3 times the actual base price of the game.
Yeah, it's like you pay for the super deluxe edition and that gets you easy mode. So they make money off the fucking babies.
Yeah.
And there you go. It's solved. We figured it out, guys.
So what recently sparked this debate again about difficulty in games was that when Sekiro came out, the Forbes article from Dave Thier, I guess that's how you say his name, he read this whole article, and I pulled some quotes out of it. I'm not going to read all of them, but I wanted to read this last one. And he just says, quote, "There's a lot of talk about respecting the player when it comes to not including an easy mode. An idea that all players can and should play this game in this particular punishing way. And yet I think the lack of an easy mode showcases the exact opposite. It shows an almost stunning lack of respect for players with the idea that they cannot be trusted with their own gameplay experience, that even those who want a challenging game would somehow be lured by the siren song of lower difficulties and destroy their own experience because they're too impatient or immature to know what they actually want." So, I mean, what do you think about that as like just an argument against not having more options in games? It just, you read that and you look at that and you're like, I kind of see your point in a way, even though my natural instinct is to be like, fuck you, games journalist guy, quit trying to change our games with your bullshit all the time, but there's a certain point to that in a way,
I disagree with the fact that he's using the terminology of being disrespectful to players. I don't agree with that language. I don't think it's even about that at all. I understand what he's trying to say, but saying it's disrespectful, like the developer doesn't fucking owe anything to players that don't normally play these games. Like I said it. You know what I mean? Like we've already been saying that. Yeah, and at the end of the day, I want people to put out what they want. Like developers, realize your artistic, whatever it is you're trying to make, just don't change your art for other people. If you want to put out a game and put these easy modes and all these options in there, then do it. And if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Don't feel forced to do it. But yeah, I agree about the whole respecting the player terminology in that.
Also, like what Xizor was saying, is that if we continue to push and pull on developers and whine and bitch and complain about everything they do, because it's not just difficulty, even though that's the topic of the discussion, then, publishers see that shit. The people that bank their money into these developers see that and they go, ooh, this is going to be bad. And that just destroys creativity in my opinion, even if part of that creativity involves difficulty, because they're directly related when it comes to game functionality, mechanics, aesthetics, etc. So
and if a publisher sees an opening to make, then they're going to be like, well, put a fucking easy mode in here so we can sell more copies of the shit,
Yeah, and so again, back to the Sacred Cow thing, that's where you're going to have your true fan base who's bought everything you've put out, even if Dark Souls 2 is a piece of shit. You put them off, and you have to make that decision. And I think that's where you're walking the tightrope, like I was saying earlier,
So moving into the last sort of aspect of this is, we touched on it briefly at the top, was accessibility. There's a lot of people out there that are disabled and, have certain health conditions that prevent them from playing games like the rest of us. And so I just want to kind of touch on that a little bit. So I pulled this quote from an article that came out around the same time as the Sekiro thing. It's this guy that is disabled, and he says, how would an easy mode in Souls work? It's simple. Let players take a lot more damage before dying. It's a blast to watch my friends take on the dual boss fight of Ornstein and Smog, or Smo. I don't know how to say that. But that fight requires some flawless timing that I can't always pull off. I tense my muscles when I'm trying to time things perfectly. Not having to worry about timing would help me avoid triggering severe pain later on. And so, I don't know. It's this also kind of could easily devolve into like, I have a problem and I have this and I have a desire for that kind of mentality that's generational, like you said. And at what point do you have to take into account every type of person, every type of disability and stuff like that? Like
it's impossible.
Where's the line on that? Yeah. I mean, so you have people like this that he has like chronic fatigue and like stuff like that. And it's just like, well, I mean, there's easy things to do, like, colorblind settings in a game and stuff like that. But once you get into very specific types of ailments and, health problems, like at what point does it just become too much to sort of handle?
So I've actually thought about this type of stuff a lot, specifically because my father had ALS. He passed away from it, and he slowly lost the ability to basically do everything. He was basically just like a talking head at one point. And it made me think about, like, what if I get ALS, or what if I had something that took away my ability to use my hands? Like, I would still want to play video games, but I have to alter the types of games I would play. I never thought like, okay, I want to play Twisted Metal again. I want Dave Jaffe to change Twisted Metal so I could play it. I didn't think that at all. All I thought it was like, I'm just gonna have to change the type of game I play, like more RPGs, maybe simpler games that like are on like a bigger screen that I can touch. And I thought about stuff that my cousin plays. He has cerebral palsy, like pretty bad, and he plays games on his tablet. He's able to still move his one arm a bit. He doesn't have the articulation or dexterity that we have, but he still plays certain games, like mobile games. So I was thinking, like, if I had some sort of affliction, I would still be covered to take care of my video game addiction. But I just kept thinking, like, okay, what would I do? Like, would I get upset about it and never play games again? Absolutely not. I would just find games that would work for my disability. I would just have to figure out how to play. Sometimes I've played games like sometimes you can like eat something with one hand and you'll try and play the game still, which you can't. You try and play a game with the other hand in the controller, with it in your hand, and it's so difficult. But if that was the only way I could play a game, if I lost an arm and I had to use one hand to play something, I would figure it out. I'd do something. If I didn't have hands, I'd use my feet or my mouth, or I don't know. Like, I think Microsoft has a controller. It's like an adaptive controller. It's like this big, like, tabletop looking thing that has like big buttons on it and stuff like that. And that would be great for my cousin with CP. He would be able to play games on console using that controller. Not every game, but it helps a lot.
Yeah, I think for me, if I were in that situation, I thought about it often just because I'm an artist, and that's part of my livelihood, doing concept art. And I feel like if I lost my right hand, the hand that is what allows me to do these things, that I would have to find a way to overcome it. Now, that's not always the case, right? You can't always, different disabilities offer up different challenges. Mm-hmm. And for me, I would do my best to train my left hand at that point. Would it be the same? Absolutely not. It never would be. I've been drawing almost my entire life with my right hand. So my brain works that way, right? Mm-hmm. And so the human condition in and of itself at that point, regardless of how specific they are, it's a lot to take in. At the same time, I agree with you. I feel like I would have to find something if I just couldn't do it. I would try, right? And if that trying just couldn't get me past it, then I feel like, that's one of the reasons I enjoy Twitch. I get some experiences from watching other people play. Is it the same? Not at all. But I would be able to feel some sort of gratification through that streamer's excitement, But yeah, I think that my category of gaming would change. It'd have to, but I would still game. I would still find a way. I don't think you'd have to bury me to keep me from doing it at that point. So
yeah, but it's just it's always the same kind of question that comes up in any topic really when we're talking about games, of people that are constantly asking for things and demanding things online, and where do you draw the line between creativity and trying to put more options and stuff in a game for accessibility's sake. And it's just I'm not asking for an answer, obviously, but I'm just speaking hypothetically here. But that's just always the thing. It's just all this stuff kind of gets lost in the in what's going on online now. It's just like there's problems with everything all the time now, and it's just you never really know whether people are arguing these things from a standpoint that we should be taking it seriously. Like people wanting an easy mode in a game, well, what value does that really add? It's just you got to keep coming back to that question, and how does that breach someone's creativity and change someone's art and what they are trying to accomplish and what they want you as a player to do. As a designer, you want the player to experience something a very specific way, and so it just kind of gets muddled with all this different accessibility stuff. Game developers and people like Microsoft that made that adaptive controller are taking great strides toward bringing everyone into the fold. But I just always sort of worry that things always trend more to the casual side of things and making things easy. And everyone needs to be included in everything. Everything has to be inclusive. And I'm not saying it's bad to have more gamers, more people playing games, more games accessible, more games for other people. And not everything has to be for me either. And gaming doesn't have to be this protected hobby that's only for dudes or, able-bodied people. But, it's always something that lingers in the back of my mind when people start demanding things. Just as an artist myself, I used to do some drawing and painting, and, I played music, and I'm a very creative person. So I'm always the type when someone's telling me I need to do something oh, I don't really like this part of the song, or I don't really like these vocals here, or whatever. I'm like, well, fuck you. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to play. That's what I want to say. And so, yeah, just in the back of my mind, I'm always coming to well, stop telling people what to do. You know what I mean? But there's also some value in what these people are saying about, well, I want to play your game too because it looks interesting, and I want to, I have this, severe pain issue, and I still want to play, and I get that too. So, but I just always have this push and pull in my mind with all these things. I don't know.
You wouldn't be able to make everybody happy. And let's just think in a broader scope. If everything in the world fit every single person perfectly, this world would be fucking boring. And even then, people would still complain about shit. It's just our nature to be upset and complain and depressed and miserable about stuff. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And I just think society would fucking collapse if every game, every movie, every book, every car, every piece of clothing, it would just be, everyone would just have the fucking same shit, and it would just be boring. And I have another thought too, is think of professional sports. Would you let someone who was paraplegic play on a basketball team in the NBA? No, you can't. How are you going to make it accessible? What? You can't even think of that. You can't even fathom that. You would not do that in sports at all, in any sport. You can't make something accessible for everybody in that regard. So, I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. Yes, I know wrestling's fake. It's fixed and everything. But in that, they have people, there's a huge thing. Nothing is safe from the outrage that's been happening with having everybody who's transgender into things, every race, every whatever, has to be diverse. So there's a new wrestling organization opening up called AEW, and they're hiring a guy with no legs. They're hiring a guy that does gimmick matches where his hands are always in his pockets. They're just making a mockery of it. They have some transgender professional wrestlers in the women's division and stuff like that, and that's fine. They're just trying to be really progressive, and that's fine. And I know it's entertainment, but when you look at certain things, what is that guy with no legs really going to do? You're in an environment where you're fake fighting, and you need to make sure that your opponent is safe. Now you got a guy with fake legs. What is he going to do? What is he really bringing? It's diverse and it's acceptable, but now this guy is in there kind of making a mockery of what it is. It's a fake fight. You need people to actually make sure everyone's safe and they're not getting dropped on their head and doing stupid things. It has to look like a real fight. It takes effort to get there. And I'm just thinking, like, you can't make everything accessible. So why would we make every single video game accessible? I agree you should make the consoles accessible and make, like, the PC's already accessible. You can get different types of controllers and stuff like that. But unfortunately, you're not going to be able to play every single game. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that, but it's all over the place.
But it all comes back to a case-by-case thing, too, where it's just like, how does adding these things that people are asking for change it? Does it completely change the game to the point where it's unrecognizable or it loses its quote-unquote soul, to make a pun? Yeah, it's just like, how much does it change it? You know, how much does it take away from what that experience is supposed to be? And I think that's just kind of a weird case-by-case thing, and you always got to check yourself whether you're coming at it from the standpoint of, like, entitlement or whatever, you know? But so continue on with accessibility here. I just wanted to sort of acknowledge some of the things that are out there that are helping, you know, other people play. SynthR mentioned that Microsoft Adaptive Controller, which is made specifically for disabled people. It's a very customizable sort of control thing where you can switch things around and change buttons and all this other stuff. I've seen some sort of disabled people that say they even like the Xbox Elite controller because of the paddles and sort of the customizable buttons and stuff like that. Then you have sort of outside hack devices like the Zim Apex or the Cronus Max Plus, which kind of lets you use different controllers or mouse and keyboard on like consoles and stuff like that. I mentioned it earlier, like colorblind options are a thing that are in most games now. You got field of view sliders. There's some people, like I know with you, SynthR, you've had like dizzy issues with certain games and stuff like that. I've heard people that like can't play first person shooters if they change the sort of field of view, like increase it or something like that. Sometimes it like takes that away. So that's kind of an interesting thing. The ability to sort of change how like QTEs work. So there's some people that have a problem, like, you know, really button mashing a button, like games where they ask you to like press X a bunch of times to fill a meter up and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that have problems doing that. So some games I've noticed like started to add options where you just hold the button down instead of having to press something, or they've added these little sort of assist and things in games that sort of let you change how those little QTEs work. And then, you know, like driving games have a lot of handicaps and assist mode, like the braking system, or, you know, things that sort of take control, have more control over your car, and, you know, automatic versus manual, which is kind of like the most basic thing. But there's a lot of, you know, options out there now that I'm starting to see show up in a lot of games, and I think it's really good for, you know, these people that have these like weird little issues and stuff like that with playing certain parts of certain games. And so I just kind of think that's interesting. Is there anything else that you guys know of like that's kind of interesting in that sense?
I feel like eventually we'll come to a point where the technology, you know, the way that we're able to play games eventually will be so that we don't have to worry so much about that, and we can, you know, move forward with just enjoying games again instead of constantly bitching and complaining about, oh this or oh that, or I feel left out, or, you know, what have you. So hopefully we get to that point and it's not so much of an issue anymore.
But yeah, there's been some games that have come out recently, you know, talking about accessibility options in games that have had some really interesting stuff. The one I saw last year that kind of was crazy to me was Tomb Raider or Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So you have like an overall difficulty setting, but then you could break that down into specific things. So you had combat difficulty, exploration difficulty, and puzzle difficulty. And you could put any one of those three on anywhere from easy, normal, or hard. And I thought that was kind of interesting because, you know, maybe someone doesn't really come to Shadow of the Tomb Raider or a Tomb Raider game or Uncharted or whatever for the combat. So maybe they're just like, I don't really care about that. I'll just put that on easy, but I want my exploration and puzzles to be hard. You know what I mean? I just thought that was like a really cool way to sort of customize your experience with that. And then you have a game called Celeste that came out last year, and it's sort of like a platformy type thing, almost like Super Meat Boy or something like that. But it had an assist mode that allows you to slow the game speed down in increments of like 10%. You could extend the air dash. You could give yourself invincibility at any point in time in the game, or infinite stamina. You could kind of like turn those on and off, like maybe if you just wanted to get through a really difficult part that you're having trouble with. And then you could skip entire chapters altogether. And, you know, Mario Kart has a lot of weird stuff like auto steering. we've kind of seen some stuff in games. Like everyone like laughs it off as being like baby mode and stuff in a lot of these games. But yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff where you can skip entire portions. Like there's been certain games. I can't remember if the last Uncharted did this. I think, or maybe the last couple. But where if you're stuck on a puzzle, they'll just be like, "Do you just want to solve this and get past it?" And you can click yes or no. And I'm like, it kind of seems like a bitch way to fucking get past something. It should be like, just figure it out, bro. But
no, but you go on YouTube and just look at it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other element to it. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, well, most people are going to get stuck and be like, I guess I'll just look this up. So why not just give them an option to skip it if they just don't fucking care, But yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff. I wish I could have had a more extensive list, but those are the ones that just sort of came to mind. You guys have any examples of like interesting sort of options in games like that?
I honestly haven't had too many experiences with games that allowed for too many options in way of breaking down difficulties, other than using cheat codes like in GTA.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about a lot of things, covered a lot of things here. There's no right or wrong answers, I think, is ultimately the conclusion that we've come to after talking about this. Games and difficulty should be taken, I guess, in a case-by-case basis. It's a constantly evolving topic that comes up every so often. And, I guess it's just an ongoing conversation that we're probably going to have forever as games change, as people start making different types of games, as more options creep up in games, as games become more inclusive and accessible and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just it's an interesting topic, and I enjoyed broaching this with you guys and seeing what we could come up with. But yeah, ultimately, it's just there's no right or wrong answers, and yeah.
Shut up, noob. Get good, bro. Last week we took the week off to play Wolfenstein Youngblood, and what a piece of shit. Right off the top, yeah. I'll just say it. What a piece of shit. Now we know why it was cheaper, why the development time wasn't very long. It was just trash. It was funny. There was funny parts and we're laughing at it, but like this did not need to be made. It's not a fun co-op game.
Yeah, I'm pretty blown away by how much I fucking hated that game, because in 2019 it takes quite a bit to sort of push me away from a shooter, especially a co-op shooter. But right away I was just like, I'm not really feeling this. And I'm like, it's probably going to get better. It's a Wolfenstein game. They're fun. And just everything about it just turned me off. Like I just hated pretty much everything about it. It was weird playing it with a controller, like on a console. So that was his own thing, but I could get over that. I know how to play a shooter on a controller. But then the characters were awful, because you're basically playing as, what is it, Soph and Jess, which are the daughters of BJ Blazkowicz, and they're just awful fucking characters.
You okay? I think I'm fine. Oh my god. Oh my god, I got his brains in my mouth. Water, give me water.
And so I hated them immediately. And then the gameplay of just these bullet sponge enemies and sort of adding on this sort of almost Deus Ex like hub world where you're constantly going in and getting quests. Like, why do you need to go back to home base to get quests? Like, why can't you just pick them up somewhere else or get them from a menu? Like, there's no point in going back to your home base for anything. You just go there to pick up and turn in quests like it's the tower in Destiny. And I mean, the guns just didn't have the same punch and impact that they do, because the enemies were like all bullet spongy. And then they layered on this other like weird shield system where certain guns are better at taking off certain little shields of enemies. And I'm sure I would have learned it if I would have kept playing it, but it's just very confusing. Like if I'm dumping entire fucking rounds of shotgun into an enemy, like I want them to die. And it's just, I don't mind the bullet spongy type games like, Borderlands or Destiny, but it just didn't work here. Like you couldn't even do the stealth stuff, like normally you could just like crouch around and like shoot somebody in the head and take them out. And this one's like, you're going to have to shoot somebody probably 5 or 6 times. So unless you can take them down super quick, with those few headshots. It's like the stealth was just pointless.
Yeah, and you start off with a skill that makes you invisible for like 10 seconds. So every single time we go into an area, we're trying to stealth into it, and within like seconds, it has that alarm. It's like, and it's like it's on now.
Oh, son of a bitch!
Oh, you fucked us that time.
Sure did. Well, it's going down now.
It's all now.
Everyone's getting knifed.
And we just got to a point where we just went in guns blazing every time. Like, fuck it. We're not even going to try. Like, the only thing that would one-hit people were the knives or the hatchets. You could, like, headshotting somebody did nothing. You try to, like, shoot the stupid, like, flying drone in the air, and you shoot it, and it didn't die, and it sets it off. And it's just stupid. It reminded me of Warframe, where it was just, like, we had these procedurally generated levels, and you just go in and you complete a mission, and we just throw a bunch of people at you, and you just go in, you get experience, and then you get out, and you level up your character, and that's it. And you just, like, you put mods on your guns, you buy different skins for your guns. It was just, it's bare bones. Like, the game loop is stupid. It's just, I don't know. This game should have been made like 15 years ago, and it would have been okay. But today, it's like a complete, like, free-to-play piece of shit, basically.
Yeah, and then the worst was like the monster closet bullshit that constantly happens, because it's kind of like it's kind of like Destiny, where you're kind of moving back and forth through these same areas, and the enemies always respawn. And so you'll be in a gunfight and you'll be taking out people, and then all of a sudden, fucking 5 guys spawn right behind you, and so now you're getting just like fucked constantly by like spawning enemies. The respawn rate is like way too high. Like, there was like very little downtime between like clearing an area and more people spawning in. And like, you're always just like, where did this guy come from? Where did that guy come from? And it was just so fucking annoying. And just the layered on, like, they expect you to sort of grind a little bit and like take all these pointless side missions. Like, that's where they were sort of getting away with saying, well, this is technically the longest Wolfenstein game we've made. And me and you both knew before we went into this, like, something's up, because like I said, it was cheaper. And, you know, they did cool stuff like giving you the buddy code. Like, if you buy this game, you can have a friend that can download like a free version of it, and you give them like a code. We never actually did it because I ended up renting.
No, it would just be I'd invite you into it.
Yeah. So that was cool, because you can just like, both people don't need to buy a copy of the game. And so you're seeing all these things before the game came out, and you're like, something's not right here. So there's going to be something off about this game. And yeah, it just did. Man, like, fucking. Even though these games are made by different people, but man, Bethesda's games are just starting to like fucking become like a controversy now. Like, it started with Fallout 76 last year and stuff like that. It's like they're trying. I appreciate they're trying different things with some of their franchises. And like, at the end of the day, like, this is not a terrible game. I just didn't like it, but like, man, what are they doing over there? I mean, because this one was like partially made by Arcane, which does the Dishonored games, and you kind of got a little bit of that flavor where you're kind of moving through the environments and you see little secret passages and stuff like that, multiple routes. But I mean, this is just like, how hard is it to make a compelling co-op shooter in 2019, and you fucking failed to do that? And then you tarnished the sort of good will you've built up with the last 2 Wolfenstein games, which are fucking amazing with this shit.
There's no story like worth seeing in this or anything. Like, it did, like, I praised the last 2 Wolfensteins for the story and how much fun they were. This does not do fuck all for that franchise at all. And what sealed the deal for me is when we were doing that raid. So for the viewers, basically I think there's 4 or 5 raids that you can do. And there's these things called brother towers. And each tower is basically a raid. And you have to be like a certain level, or at least be strong enough to tackle it. And we did this raid, and we got to the final boss of it. It took about 45 minutes. And it was just insane. There was just like lasers on the floor that would change, and then this huge robots like attacking you, and then there's shit flying everywhere. So it's super hard. Like, Xizor and I were going down every 2 seconds, like getting each other back up. And eventually we died. And what happened was we were just put back right at the beginning of the raid. There was no checkpoint. There's no nothing. It was like, you're gonna have to do that whole 45 minutes over again. You kept the XP that you had, but you have to do the whole fucking thing over again. That was it. I was like, I'm done. Uninstall.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I'm the one that kind of fucked us in that last fight because we almost
I
had
didn't
that
want to
guy
say
down.
it. I didn't want to say
No,
it.
I totally. I mean, there's video proof of it. You can go watch it on our YouTube channel. We streamed ourselves playing it the first couple of days, and yeah, it was me that totally fucked it. I wasn't like I was so worried about the boss and trying to figure out what those levers were doing in the middle of the level. Like I thought they had something to do with the boss fight, and so I kept like not paying attention to the fucking lasers that were hitting me, and then I was getting hit by the fucking boss, and yeah, I totally botched that. But
I picked you
even
up like
still,
20
yeah,
times.
yeah, but even still, it was just like, holy fuck, we're gonna have to do all that again, and I just wasn't enjoying the combat. Like I said at the top,
No.
man, like like how hard is it to make fucking shooters that feel good in 2019? Like I just wasn't enjoying the shooting. Like I said, a lot of it was the bullet spongy aspect of it, but I just the weapons lack their punch that they have in a normal Wolfenstein game when you fucking beef everybody up with these fucking huge health bars and shields that don't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, that's the same problem I had with the Division franchise. It just doesn't work. Like the Division is like a great game. It's fun, but I didn't like the bullet sponge aspect of it, especially when the game's trying to be somewhat realistic. It's just
yeah,
not
so
fun.
it doesn't bother me as much in that game. But yeah, it's just it didn't fit here, and this is not what I wanted. I just wanted a normal Wolfenstein campaign, go through linear levels, just run through with a buddy. And like I understand that having two people would make it easier, but I figured they would find a better way to sort of offset that difficulty than just making everyone a bullet sponge and having these fucking terrible shield mechanics on top of everything else. And yeah, it's just this whole thing was not what I thought. I thought this was like a shoe in for this like a easy fun co-op game, and that's not what it turned out to be. I've seen a lot of people out there that like it, and that I think we're kind of on the lower end of people out there that are saying this game is shit. But I just don't. I don't
Low
like
standards. Fuck me.
Yeah, I guess
Hitler's rolling in his grave.
Yeah,
unless he's still alive, we don't know.
But so, Hollow, you've got some games you're playing on here. So how's Monster Hunter treating you these days?
Monster Hunter's been great. Recently got back into it since they're doing they're basically going back over all the events that have taken place since the game launched and allowing people to, take up in those that, if you missed one or two here and there throughout the seasonal changes. Ready for Iceborne. Looking forward to that and the new content. I didn't play the beta because I'm kind of a purist when it comes to new experiences. I don't like to know a lot going into something when it's something I'm already hyped about. So yeah, Monster Hunter has been great. I've been picking it back up with a couple of my friends and just going through and having a good time. Not really pushing too much into the arch-tempered Elder Dragon horse shit at the moment because it's currently the most difficult thing you can do, and I just hadn't really felt like doing that. So speaking on difficulty, there's that. So yeah, Monster Hunter's been good. I've been enjoying it. Always have.
Yeah, so I'm curious. You said you've been playing some Hunt Showdown too. I've been really wanting to hear what you got to say about this game. So tell me all about it.
Hunt Showdown has been really good. I played it when it came out and I liked it then, but I could tell it needed some help here and there. It just felt kind of clunky initially to me. Now they've had several updates. They've added in some quality of life improvements, and recently, man, I've just had a blast with it.
Yeah, so sort of explain what this game is and how it works and like what you're doing here.
So you are in Louisiana, and it's in cowboy times, if you will, and it's a different spin on the whole battle royale aspect because they have very, very deep PvE inside of it. And by deep, what I'm saying is it requires tact. You can't just run through it and just splash through all these, monsters and stuff that are spread across the map. So you go in either a duo or solo queue. You're given a character for free that you won't lose if they die. So they have a roguelike aspect. So once you hit rank 16, your hunter that you've been leveling up and putting these stats into, etc., buying weapons for, and just making, playing him, setting him up the way you like to play. If he dies or you don't make it out of the map in time or get to the exit in time, he's gone.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so it's frustrating, but again, it's one of those things that for some reason I like. I guess that game could be considered masocore too. But you go across the map. You have this ability to, if keybinds F, you can see around in like this ethereal vision type thing, where you look for clues. There's clues cut up the map for you. and everyone else, so they can then start to see where the objective in the map is, which is a boss. And you kill the boss, you banish the boss, but in the entire time all this is going on, you've got other players to deal with. And there's a lot of stealth aspects to it. There's a few different play styles, ranged, sniping. There's even some heavy emphasis in melee. Then you've got, of course, your shotguns and crossbows and stuff like that. But man, I've really been enjoying it. It's super dark, like gothic Western is the best I can describe it. It rides a sadistic line pretty hard. But yeah, man, it's been tons of fun. Really like it a lot.
So how many players are in a match at one time?
So from what I understand, if you go in duos, there's 5 teams of 2, and solos is the same, but obviously you're just by yourself. And the fights are so intense because it's very much, depending on the weapons, nothing's too crazy. Like there's not like really like too many otherworldly weapons in the game, especially the attributes you have on your player or your character rather. But I mean, you can get you're dead in one shot in some cases. Like a headshot's the end. That's it. You don't get another chance. You can be revived by your teammate. Occasionally, though, you got some really cool guys out there that will throw firebombs on your body to make sure your body just burns and can't be revived, which, I mean, I'm to blame for some of that. But it's awesome, though. It's definitely, if you, and I know it's coming out on console this year, I believe. I think PS4, I haven't read into the Xbox, but I know PS4 is getting it, I believe, this year. But it's totally worth picking up on PC.
Yeah, I've been looking at it for a while now. I was going to buy it. I remember seeing it early on because it's made by Crytek, which they're like the people that always like break your computer with their fucking graphics and lighting. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm always interested in the game from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
But I was watching some footage of it last night. I was watching Jack Frags play a little bit of it, and it doesn't look as good as what they were showing initially, but I don't know if that's just his settings or whatever. He might be playing it just for performance over graphics, but it doesn't look quite as good as I remember it looking early on. But yeah, I'm still kind of interested in it. I'll probably pick it up sometime to try it with you because I've had this on the back burner for a while. Being like, well, if it goes on sale or something like that, I'll probably get it because it's kind of interesting. So yeah, what is it about capturing the monsters? Like, what is that aspect of it? Like, is that kind of the point, or like killing them? Like, how do you win this other than just eliminating everyone else?
Well, that's the whole thing, is you're going in to banish these demons or creatures, whatever you want to call them. So you kill them, and then there's a banish timer that comes up. And during that timer, you are essentially protecting your space. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want anyone to get in there to kill you, and then they'll be able to claim the monster's soul essentially after it's been banished. Once that banish timer's up, you collect the soul, and you got to get to the exit. And a lot of people will camp exits and things like that if they have an idea where you're probably going to go. It's usually the closest exit to the monster at that point in time. But once you have that monster's soul, you have the ability to then use that, I forget the name of it, the mechanic that's like this ethereal sight thing. You have a limited amount of time to use this to where you can see where enemies are. So they highlight orange on the screen in this like spirit looking way. But so yeah, that's kind of the objective. I haven't been in a match yet where everybody just died, and I think even so that it's still the point is to kill the boss on the map, get out.
Yeah.
So that's still your objective. But it's been, man, there's some intense moments. I mean, like shit, like setting the environment, the atmosphere, the sound in the game is ridiculous. Like I would go as far as to say they did an incredible job with the sound in the game. And you have to hear, like, you have to pay attention to all of it. You have to really listen because, like I said, stealth is a thing. But you have like bells you could run into, like wind chimes or broken glass on the floor, and you can hear this type of stuff if they're close enough to you. And it also has the area voice, what's it called?
Proximity chat.
Thank you. It has proximity chat, so whispering to your teammate next to you is important if you're not in some sort of third-party program. But yeah, it's like setting up bear traps is in front of the door to the boss room if there's one near you, because you can use environment weapons and things that are set up in the environment different ways. And just knowing, you hear it go off and you're like, okay, I've got a second. There's a guy down there. I'm going to go kill him real quick. He still has a chance of killing you and getting out of that. But yeah, I mean, it just atmospheric sounds and all of that. The lighting, I feel like a lot of the streamers, though, they're playing it on lower settings
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
You know, I mean, Shroud does it all the time. Every game, he has a computer that could probably launch a spacecraft remotely from NASA, but he's still going to play everything to get literally 5,000 FPS if you can. So, I mean, I play it on max settings, and I usually run about 80, 86 FPS, and to me, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I'd like to see it on a high end rig. I don't know. I haven't really looked at it too much lately. It came out and it seemed like it was kind of people were just like kind of lukewarm on it, and so I was like, well, I'll kind of wait around and maybe if it goes on sale at some point, I'll pick it up. But yeah, it looks like a really intense game, and
it's good. It's very intense.
It seems like something I would be into for sure. So something else I played this game last week. I talked about setting my PlayStation VR up again. So I downloaded Wolfenstein Cyberpilot. In my disappointment of Wolfenstein Youngblood, I wanted something to satisfy my Wolfenstein needs. So I downloaded Cyberpilot. It's your typical sort of VR theme park bullshit. I was kind of disappointed with it, although I think I would prefer it if I could play it on a PC VR setup, like on my Oculus Rift or something, because you can play it with a controller or you can play with the Move controllers, and both have their pros and cons. I initially started with a controller, which feels better for certain aspects of it, but then I switched to the Move controllers because you basically have both your arms out in front of you like you do with most VR games. But when you're using a controller, it's almost like your hands are like handcuffed. And so you're like moving them around, like trying to pick up things in the environment, like you're fucking handcuffed and you're dropping shit. And it didn't really work out well. But then I switched to the Move controllers, and yeah, they're great for certain things. But then I was playing this one segment where I'm playing as like some kind of like stealth drone, and I'm trying to fly this thing with like Move controllers, and it was just awful. I still want to go back to it and maybe get through the whole thing. I'm sure it's not super long, but yeah, it just does a lot of like I thought we were past some of this like early VR bullshit. Like it just seems like baby's first VR game. Like this is just let's do all the cutesy little things that every other VR game does because I guess we have to assume this would be someone's first VR game. Just very weird. Not like you're basically controlling like like the little robot dog thing in one part, and I guess you're I don't know all the different ones. I know eventually you get in like the big mech like you do in the Wolfenstein campaigns where you're just like going through blasts and shit. And that's what I kind of thought the whole game was going to be was just like you in a mech suit running around. And mech VR games are kind of fun. Like they just feel really good. But so far it's been kind of disappointing. I don't know. Like I said, I want to go back to it and get through this boring ass fucking stealth drone sequence that I'm doing right now. Maybe get back into some action bits. But yeah, somewhat disappointed in that. And then I had bought Drive Club VR a while back for whenever I got around to hooking up my VR thing again. And so I put that on. Drive Club is my favorite racing game this generation. So I wanted to try the VR version. And yeah, it's pretty fucking fun. Even though the graphics sort of look like PlayStation 2 graphics for the most part, it definitely doesn't look good. I mean, you have to get performance more so than graphics with these VR games so you don't get motion sick. So a lot of them get watered down, but it's still pretty novel playing a driving game in VR. Like you're really sitting there in the fucking cockpit or, in the front seat of a car, and you're kind of glancing up at your mirrors and stuff to see the cars around you. And it's just really cool. I'll throw on, some Spotify, listen to some music while I'm driving around and racing and stuff. It's pretty fun. It's just one of those things I'll kind of jump in and out of here and there. It's got a nice lengthy campaign, a lot of races in there to do. So that's pretty nice. But yeah, pretty fun. It's a little bit watered down from your normal racing game, next gen racing game experience, but overall pretty fun. And then I played some Wipeout VR, which was kind of mind blowing the other day. Or I started it last week. I was playing some more last night. But so I bought the Omega collection about a month ago because I was feeling some Wipeout, and I started playing it, and I was like, not really feeling this. And so I knew there was like a VR portion to that, but I thought it was just like a separate mode. But apparently, it was like you can play all three games just all in VR, like 2048. HD and Fury, and I was kind of like, holy shit, my mind was blown. But yeah, I mean, playing Wipeout in VR, like sitting in the cockpit, like doing all the fucking barrel rolls and the loops and fucking fighting, it's like Wipeout like you could never fucking imagine. It's so fucking intense and awesome. I don't know, the base games never had a cockpit view, did they? I don't remember.
No, not like you could see, like you couldn't see inside. It would just be you're on the road. Like Mad Max style.
But yeah, so just imagine that though, like you're in the fucking hovercraft thing.
I'd be puking all over the place, man, for sure. Like I would. The game wouldn't have to move yet, and I'd be vomiting just knowing that I'm sitting in this thing and it's ready to go.
Yeah, again, like I said before, I'd be curious to see. Like, I think at some point, as a Wipeout fan, you got to try this thing at some point to see. So that you can actually move the camera out to like normal view, like behind. Like you can do close up, you can do cockpit close up and then farther behind. So if the cockpit was too intense, you could just play it like normal.
It wouldn't matter,
but
because you're still doing like turns and loops and all this other stuff, and things are whipping by. It's too much visually for me to take in. Like I love Wipeout and I can just handle it on the screen, but if it's like my entire vision is this, I'll die. I'll probably experience like 5Gs just sitting in my chair.
Yeah, I don't know. I know you're a Wipeout fan, and the whole time playing this, I'm like, this would blow fucking
It would.
goddamn mind.
It
would blow your fucking mind.
It would. It literally would. It'd blow chunks everywhere too.
And then so playing some DayZ lately. Now I played the standalone when it first came out to PC like 6-7 years ago. Now I don't even remember. It's been a long ass time, but I've never gone back to it. So what's DayZ looking like these days?
Well, it really depends on what your aim is. I still feel like PC is the only way to play that game, because the consoles just don't have the want or need at all for any sort of camaraderie. Like, we're all trying to survive here. And so basically what happens is now that, today they released the 1.4 update that catches people up with PC that are on console, but it's still buggy as fuck. Frame rate's still pretty shitty at times, not always. It definitely has some pop in, pop out issues and textures, environment shit, but it's still fun somehow. The thing is on console, and now they've added private servers that you can rent, which is also pretty nice. So console players can try to develop some sort of community with each other. But so far, the past few times that I've died and respawned, it's like I'm getting attacked immediately by some twat that's just waiting for people to spawn. But overall, I enjoy this type of games, the survival stuff. I like anything that's based around, like, this is going to sound cliche thanks to HBO, but Chernobyl. I've always been fascinated with that shit because it's just the scale of what it was historically.
Yeah. Going back to like Stalker and
dude, fucking like Stalker's awesome. Yeah, so
like Metro and stuff like that. Yeah,
love that shit. So yeah, it's it only has zombies. They
how are the zombies now? Because I first started playing, they were like really dumb and just like that. I thought that was kind of supposed to be the point of the game, is like trying to avoid the zombies while also dealing with other players. But it seemed like the zombies were just too fucking wonky, and they didn't like operate in any kind of believable manner. They weren't really a threat at all. You just kind of like casually avoided them, and it was more about just creeping around and meeting other people and what happened with other people. So have they made that better at all?
Not from what I can tell, honestly. They're still pretty retarded. Here's my technique for dealing with zombies. I get a zombie chasing me. I run in a house I've already looted or don't plan on looting. The zombie follows me. I run past the zombie, shut the door, and now it's dealt with. So I just lock zombies in houses all day.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't checked back in on this game in a while, but it just seemed like they never finished this or made it what it was supposed to.
It's, look, I feel like they kind of just dropped that, and the zombies are meant to just be more of an inconvenience, if anything. It's a PvP game. I mean, that's the end all be all after it's all said and done, is that game is meant to have you just infinitely kill other players and see how long your player can survive. So I mean, it's been fun, like I said, but PC is the only way to, in my opinion, to play it. It looks way better, obviously. The updates are a lot more fluid. Now, they did have some hiccups after 1.4 dropped for PC. I don't know why that would transition over to console after it being out for the time that it has been already on PC, but it is happening. So whatever, we'll find out. I'll play it some more tonight, throughout the week, see how it goes. But yeah, I do like it just because of the setting, and I like AKs. So, it's Russian, they're AKs. So it's fun. I mean, but not anything I would invest a mass amount of time into.
Yeah, I mean, I played it for like a couple weeks and just kind of got burned out on that loop of just see how long I could survive and then
That's
die,
that's
and
what it is.
then
Yeah, that's what it is. That is the goal of the game, and it's another one of those where you they did address like the loot issue, because before 1.4 it was constantly like, how many denim skirts can I put in my backpack and turn into rags so that I can bandage myself later? There's like, how many times, like the other day just yesterday before this update this morning, I probably had enough ammo for 3 different weapons I didn't have in my bag or magazines for to kill 20 people. And then I had a weapon with no ammo and no magazines. So it was like I couldn't defend myself with a gun, but that's the way those games work. Now they have changed that to where I noticed as soon as I got in, I did find a sidearm pretty quickly, magazine pretty quickly, ammo. Like they're making it more relative to the area instead of it just being sparse and spread out to where like I run 6 miles and finally find a fucking magazine for the gun, as I've been carrying the ammo for it for 2 days. So
this just seems like stuff they would have done years ago, though.
I know that's what I said, but they've addressed at least that much.
It's stuff like this is why I don't get into these early access games. They start out with this very promising premise and shit. Like Daisy, when I first started playing, I'm like, oh, this is cool, but just wait. In a year or two, this is going to be fucking amazing. And
yeah, especially coming from an Arma mod, like I was like, this will be dope, like initially when it first happened, and I was like, oh fuck, this is trash. But now you got your people just like in the Souls community that would hang me and set me on fire for saying that. But it is what it is. It's doing all right on console, but again, play it on PC if you're gonna play it.
Yeah, it's kind of like these people that are playing like PUBG on a console. It's like,
dude, that's the most ridiculous thing. I've got some people that are doing that on my friends list, and I'm just like, dude, inventory management 2.0. Why put yourself through that on a fucking controller?
Yeah. So another game I've been playing this past week, kind of unexpectedly, is called Hob. Now I'm playing that on the Switch. It's made by Runic Games, the makers of Torchlight. Came out in like 2017. I didn't really remember this game, and the only reason why I started playing it was I was kind of on my Switch browsing around, and I saw in the news segment that either this is a new feature to the Nintendo Switch or they just added new demos, but they're like, check out our new demos. And I'm like, okay, I'll just download some demos. So I downloaded the demo for this game Hob, and I played through the demo, and I'm like, instant buy. It's one of those rare instances where you play something you've never heard of. I'm sure I probably heard of it at some point, but just completely brushed it off because it's very much inspired by Zelda. So it's basically like Zelda meets Eco, basically how I would describe it, which are like, I'm not a big Zelda fan, but I like these adventure games like the Team Eco stuff, which we've talked about to death on the podcast. But so it's very much like that. I mean, you're playing this silent, sort of nameless protagonist that wakes up in this weird, like sort of mystical land. It's all sort of nature mixed with machines. And there's not any dialogue. There's not really a story. You go out and you're following this like kind of robot dude around, and you accidentally touch something and it corrupts your arm, and they have to take your arm off, and then the robot dude gives you his like robot arm, so you have this big strong arm that you're running around with, like climbing stuff and punching through walls, and they sort of use it for traversal and like puzzle solving elements while you would have super strength. But I don't know. The music is very like sort of subtle, and ethereal. But yeah, it's just like a really fun, chill, like action adventure game. Like there's some combat in it, very basic combat, but it's all about traversing the environment, pulling some levers, solving some minor puzzles. Kind of in the same way that Rhyme is. It's kind of that style of game. It's kind of laid back adventure game. But I'm just fucking loving it. This is a wonderful little game, and like I said, I'd never heard of it until I downloaded this demo. Have you guys heard of this game or seen it at all?
No.
Yeah, I have. That sounds like a reason for me to get something else for my Switch, actually.
Yeah, it's a perfect little Switch game for sure. It says, the Switch is quickly becoming like, this is where I play some like weird indie games like this. You know what I mean?
That's all I have on mine right now.
Yeah, pretty much. That's all I use it for too. But yeah, that's Hob. It's really great. I totally recommend checking it out. Like I said, you can go grab a demo for free and see if you like it on the Switch. So, Hollow, you say you've been playing some Battlefield 5 lately. How's that coming along?
It's good, but it still feels incomplete. This goes to this whole games as a service thing where they make all the promises, and you're just wondering when the fuck those promises are going to actually come to fruition. So still just the British and the Germans. I mean, it's fun. I like it. It's World War II. It's a good time. I play a lot of it with my brother. It's actually the majority of the time I spend playing is if he's going to be playing it. Yeah, Battlefield 5 as a whole, I feel like could be a really good game. Right now, it's just lacking. We're still missing some pretty major aspects of World War II, like the Americans. The Russians aren't in there. We're still waiting on all of that. They still have some things to deal with as far as like head glitching and things like that, where people can basically pop behind something and you can see their head, but you can't hit it. Their hitboxes are a little funny sometimes, better than any of the Call of Duties, at least up until the new one comes out. Can't wait for that shit, but that's a different day. Yeah, it's fun. Probably my favorite thing about it is the vehicles, both flying the planes and just bombing the shit out of people's bases they've built up, because you can construct, defensive points with sandbags and dragon's teeth and stuff like that, and just bombing them and being able to take a flag back. It feels good. Tanks feel awesome in this game, but it is World War II, so it's occasionally slower paced. One of the other things that is kind of a downfall to it for me is automatic weapons just seem to be, even though there were a few outside of, LMGs and things like that, SMGs, a couple of the assault rifles like the STG, it's like the mainstay. And I'm more of a bolt action type person.
Yeah, I am too.
I like those. I like the sniper rifles. I like M1 Garands, which we don't have yet, obviously.
They don't have the Grands in there?
Yeah, we're still waiting on the Americans to come through, so they're just like,
oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
God, so, what the fuck, man.
I know, it's so irritating, but
dude, Battlefield 5 has just been a fucking disaster from the word go. Like,
it really has.
Even before it launched, it was always just surrounded by controversy and bullshit. And then, like, what happened to where we can't even get a Battlefield game that comes out and it's like complete, and then like maybe you need to tweak some balancing stuff. It just seems like this has been like we're coming up on like what, a year of this game having been out, and like it's still, and like I haven't played it personally. Like I have it, and I've just been kind of like sitting on it for a while, thinking like maybe I'll jump into it at some point. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Battlefield fan. I've played nearly all of them, and yeah, just everything about this stuff before this game came out, the way they were talking to fans and want to be fucking all social justice and shit, and then just like every time I turn around and look at this game, like, all right, is it good now? Can I jump in? It just seems like people are like, it's it's fun. It's Battlefield. If you like I mean, I love World War II games. I love Battlefield, and I'm sure I would have fun with it if I played it, regardless of what state it's in. But it just seems like, why is this such a hard thing? Like, how many fucking Battlefield games have you guys made? Why is this so fucking hard?
I don't understand it. And the thing is like Bad Company, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4. Like, I love those games. Absolutely love them. But they came out and it was like, here's a whole game, and then here's maps later on, right? Here's weapons later on. This one, I can't for the life of me figure out why in the hell they decided just to introduce Germans and British. Like, that was it. Like, that's what it's been this entire year. Like, how does that work? I don't understand it. You just don't have that, right? Like, that's not World War II. And so, and even some of the locations you fight at, some of the maps you fight on, you're just like, they preached all this historical accuracy, and oh man, they couldn't be further from it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about that stuff at the end of the day. Like, I mean, I it's a video game. You can have a little bit of fun with it, but like,
right. Just don't tout it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll tell you, one of the best things about it are the the voice actors' screams for some of the deaths are the funniest thing. Probably one of the best things of the game. Like, it sounds like the voice clips that people use for montage videos from PUBG or some shit like that. The screams are so ridiculous, and honestly, it's like you look forward to it sometimes. You're like, yeah, I just shot that guy. What's he gonna sound like? And that was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna. I wish I have it on Xbox, of course. Like, every time I buy Battlefield, I get on the platform that no one else is like playing it on. Like, I normally would play it on PC, but my computer's no spring chicken, so I do like playing them on consoles, like on the Xbox. But yeah, I
will say, Firestorm, the Battle Royale mode. I know everybody hates Battle Royales now. I like them. Sorry, but it actually has gotten a lot better. I actually enjoy Firestorm. It's this weird, like, going back to the whole idea of having to use bolt action rifles and things like that to deal with, 64 players. Well, in the case of you being 163, it's a lot of fun. I like it. Probably enjoy it more than the current game, which is really sad. But anyhow, yeah. Overall, not bad game, but not what it should be.
Yeah, like I said, I've had a copy of Battlefield 5 for a while, thinking like there's gonna be a time when I'm like, time for some Battlefield, and I just haven't really been there yet. But yeah, I'll probably check it out at some point. But what I did check out this past week was Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on the Switch. Now, Hollow, are you a fan of the Ultimate Alliance games at all?
I am. Yep. I have enjoyed the Ultimate Alliance games.
Yeah, I know SynthR, you like them too, but
I actually played 1 and 2 last year, and it was fucking terrible.
Yeah, I mean they're not great games. Like it's just like they always have so much potential that's like squandered on all of them. I think like they just, and this one's kind of the same. Although I went into this with like pretty low expectations. It's exclusive to the Switch, so we knew it was going to be a watered down experience from the get go. But yeah, playing through it though, it is kind of what you expect. But I'm enjoying it way more than I thought I would though. It's totally a fun little couch co-op game. I mean, I think they did a way better job with the story and everything. I mean, it's still just throwing all the fucking Marvel shit at you all the time. Like, here's the boss fight here, and here's this character, and whoa, here come the X-Men, and here's fucking Green Goblin, and like, but they make the story, they constructed the story in a way that it like really kind of has a flow to it that really is a lot better than the other two, in my opinion. Like, it's still, Marvel bullshit. I mean, it's basically like you're basically like playing a Saturday morning cartoon epic Marvel movie with this game. But I'm digging the sort of vibe and how they introduce the different villains and characters and stuff. It has like a really cool flow to it. But yeah, it's pretty much what you expect. I like certain characters I didn't think I would like. I usually go for the big tanky characters like Colossus or Hulk or stuff like that. But I'm kind of enjoying these weird ones, like the ones that can sort of fly and hover and stuff like that. Like Star-Lord is actually kind of my favorite character to play as. But yeah, there's a nice variety. They got like this like sort of almost sphere grid sort of upgrade system, almost like was it from like Final Fantasy X? Right, they had that sort of sphere grid upgrade thing, something kind of like that. Not as complex, but yeah, my only real complaint about it is that they're constantly throwing these new characters at you that you can play as, but they don't level up with you. And so as you're going through, like you're like, oh, maybe I just want to go back and play with some Iron Man. It's like, oh, he's level 6, and I'm fighting like, the rest of my characters like level 12, and so it's really like shitty in that aspect. Like you would have to grind up all the characters if you wanted to keep them all in a position where they would be useful in combat. So that's my major complaint about it. But yeah, I mean, it's more fun than I thought it would be. And of all the games I was sort of looking forward to in July with like Wolfenstein Youngblood and stuff like that, this has actually been one of the funner ones. Like this came out in the winter, and I was not expecting that. So as far as games I was wanting to play in July, this is definitely the best one. But yeah, so I do recommend it. It's not amazing, but it's just not what we wanted from a Ultimate Alliance 3 if it would have been on like Xbox and PlayStation and like really expansive options and awesome next gen graphics. It's definitely not that. That's the game I would have wanted to have. But and the RPG mechanics that are in there, like pretty basic. There's not a whole lot going on here, but it is pretty fun. I think it's better than most people think it is. It's dumb fun, and at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what these games are going for. So I do recommend it. And then, so I guess you've been playing some more Dark Souls 3 lately, Hollow?
Yep, it's a on and off thing for me. I always go back and feel the need to make a new character and try a new play style. But now, since I've done it so much in Dark Souls 3, and since it's the end, at least from what Miyazaki said of the Dark Souls series, I go in for PvP. I go in and invade, go in to be a dickhead, that type of stuff. Nothing too exciting, really. I mean, the game will always be the series as a whole, other than 2. And the reason I said 2 is shit is because Miyazaki wasn't behind it as he was the rest of the series because he was working on Bloodborne, and you can definitely tell a difference between 2 as opposed to 1 and 3. and Demon Souls even so. Like the weight of your character, the armor just seems to have zero effect, and et cetera, et cetera. It's just not as good. But 3, yeah, man. Every time I get on there, I always have time. I always find a new way to do something. You know, I've always said, and I feel like it's still to this day, that if I were gonna try to find a game that gave me the sense of what like traditional D&D gave me, at least reading into the D&D stories and stuff like that, you know, and I wanted that experience in a more realistic fashion, I guess is the best way to put it. Brutal, if you will, like rolling natural ones all the time. Dark Souls would be that game. And Dark Souls 3 just has, you know, upgrade visually in comparison to the rest of them, obviously, as time's going on. And the feeling of combat's a lot more fluid. Yeah, going for PvP. PvP is fun. It's still, I mean, it's a joke, really, being honest, but that's why it's fun. So.
Okay, you want to introduce it?
You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you. After you.
I insist.
I insist.
I insist. He insists, he says. He insists.
Been insisted.
It's time for questions and answers. If you have any questions you want to ask us, have an interesting topic that you want to pitch, or want to be part of the show, send us an email at bastardsgamingnetwork@gmail.com or message us on the Bastards of Gaming Facebook group. This week, Jumping Jack Flash asked, what do you think about GameStop's, quote, business transformation strategy to evolve its efforts in cultivating innovative customer-centric opportunities to bring video game culture to life in every neighborhood by trying out new concepts in select stores around the nation, including offering esports competitions, locations that focus completely on retro gaming software and hardware, and offering new ways for players to demo games. How much longer can GameStop last?
You know, working in marketing communications myself, when I read shit like this, it makes me want to puke in my mouth. Like, it's just the jargon. Business transformation, cultivating innovative customer-centric opportunities. Oh, fucking get the dick out of your mouth, please.
Yeah, the keywords.
Yeah, get over yourself.
We're gonna bring video game culture to life in every neighborhood.
Sure you are. You're gonna do whatever you can to fucking survive, because you're on your way out. Your Funko Pops aren't gonna be around forever to keep your store running.
Yeah, it's like a third of the fucking store. This fucking Funko Pops and like fucking merchandise.
Well, that wasn't the case in Canada until maybe 2 years ago. And
Don't forget Overwatch lanyards.
There's just tons of shit. It's just there's mugs, there's toques, there's all this fucking garbage now. Whenever I go into GameStop, and the first time I saw that was actually in the States a couple years ago, and I think you guys were with ThinkGeek, they supplied shit or whatever. And I was like, holy fuck, this whole store is just filled with garbage. And then it just flew into Canada. And here it was, where are the games? Oh, there's one wall dedicated to it. But now we got t-shirts and all this other horse shit that I don't even know who the fuck buys. All these I'm gonna buy a Jigglypuff stuffy. Fuck off. I don't go there for this shit.
Yeah, I mean, I figure it's I can just buy that stuff elsewhere online. I don't need to go into a store for it. But anyways, just talking about what could GameStop do? What is this push that they're trying to do? Esports competitions and locations that focus on retro gaming. It's well, you had Funko Land back in the day, and then you fucking absorbed it and changed it. That was your sort of retro gaming mixed with new shit store. And it's I think most areas have a retro gaming store. They started taking in doing retro shit on the low key a while back, so it's not totally new, but I don't know. I could understand how there would be certain segments of the population of the United States and Canada where maybe a certain type of store would work better than others, but I just don't really. This doesn't tell me anything, and it does, what does it fucking mean? What would they really do to bring people in? You know,
there's already other stores doing it. There's already retro stores run by people who actually love video games, doing this stuff. It's not some corporate fucking schmuck who gives two shits about video games trying to reap as much money from the retro market as possible, or trying to put an esports together. What
are they going to do with esports? What does that do for GameStop sales? I'm sitting here thinking actually that would help them out if they had someone buy into an esports team or create a GameStop esports team, but I only see that now. When I said help them out, what I was thinking of is the name, right? GameStop. That does nothing for physical game sales.
No,
at all. So
no,
yeah, they're pretty much fucked themselves on out the door already. So
it's just a sign of the times.
Yeah.
It's just it is. They should just make a games as a service. Jump into that fray with everyone else.
Yeah, they should just start selling loot boxes.
There you go.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, of course, with games going more digital, this was always going to happen. I mean, it's even other retail chains are sort of closing down now. Like people just buy everything off Amazon on the internet. It's just, regardless of like the shitty business practices they've had in the past, and like I said, me and Hollow have worked at a GameStop. We've seen it from the inside, and they were fucking shitty back then. And the fact that GameStop's been a shitty company has like been going on for fucking ever, and that's part of the problem. But regardless of how they handled their business shit, they were still always going to go the way of the dodo eventually, because that's just how things work,
Yep, it's inevitable for them. I mean, it always has been.
What if they went back to renting? That work?
Yeah, I mean, I would like that. I mean, that would be a cool thing if you could. It seemed like they were trying to experiment with that last year, and then they shut that fucking program down so goddamn fast, where you could like. They tried to have some incentive where you could like basically rent games. Like you would pay so much a month and you would have access to like used games. You could bring them in and trade them out and stuff like that. And they were trying to do that, but whatever it was that like people were already like figuring out ways to like game the system, and like because their GameStop's computers run on this like old ass fucking DOS program or some shit. And so whatever it was they introduced to like make this program happen, just like fucked their entire system. And I guess they just said, fuck it, we're not doing this. So which like that was the only time when I was like, okay, maybe GameStop will be fucking useful again, because I can basically use it as like a rental place. And I don't know, it's just like any like good program they could possibly have, they just fuck it up,
They could have given us the Blockbuster nostalgia, but they shit in it. So
yeah.
Darth Travis, he asks, or she, I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't have said that at all. Now we're going to get in trouble and our podcast's going to get shut down. Are you guys into the speed running scene or watch games done quick? No and no.
I wouldn't say I'm into the speed running scene, but I forget about it until every year when that sort of games done quick charity thing rolls around and you start seeing all this stuff pop up on the gaming sites. I don't pay it too much attention, but it is fascinating to watch some of this stuff, like watching the ways that people break these games and try to get through them as quickly as possible, especially if it's something that like you're really into, like a Halo game or some weird shit like that. Like it's always funny seeing how people break these games and the tricks and stuff they do to get through them just to shave off seconds of a run and stuff like that. Yeah, I find it fascinating. I just also find it like really weird, the dedication these people put into like one game and like playing it in the most like not even really like fun way, just like the goal is just get through it as fast as possible. And like there's certain things like Golden, I've seen people do like GoldenEye where it's like if you look down at the ground the majority of the time, like you get faster frames per second, and that makes you go through. It's just like all these weird tricks. People find like walls where they can like rub up against in this certain way, turn my back and go this way, and then I'll phase through the wall. And it's like, it's just mind blowing. So like, I appreciate it from afar. I'm like, you guys are fucking insane with all this stuff you're coming up with. I can't imagine like dedicating all my gaming time to like trying to get through a game as fast as possible.
We're just different kind of gamers. We like playing new games, new experiences, but we even know people who like just play the same games forever and obsess about those details that we don't really care about. You know what I mean? Like they're just obsessed with the code, or like you could do this or do that, and it's just like I don't want to hear about it. I played that game 20 years ago and it's done.
I like to watch games done quick, depending on what they're playing. And I did get into it for a little bit, trying to do stuff with Hotline Miami, which is one of my top 5 favorite games, by the way.
Wow.
How do you speedrun Hotline Miami? Just like being really efficient at killing people and stuff, I guess?
That's the best way that I could look at it, because I was trying to introduce myself to the concept with that game. And because there's just so many things you can do to move through a level efficiently. And I mean, I used to have some of that shit down to a damn science back when I was just like playing it just incessantly. Like I couldn't stop. But yeah, I feel like some of these games these people play, like some fucking Prince of Persia on PS2 or some shit, like, man, that's like chewing coal. Why would you do that to yourself?
That's the other aspect of it. It's like people pick these weirdly specific games to like speed run too. It's like, what is it that? Why are you drawn to this specific game? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess it's just
strange.
But so when you were like messing around with like a hotline, is there like a Hotline Miami scene where there's like a speed running scene with that, or like
I never even checked. I just said, you know what? I'm gonna see the fastest time I can make through this game, and I gave up. It was so infuriating. Like, even because I could get like the first several chapters down to like no fuck ups whatsoever. Like, I could just blast through it and do like cool shit, like, you know, as soon as I hit a door, throwing the gun, like picking up a gun and throwing it at a guy immediately to knock him out, you know, killing the dude in front of him, and then going back and killing that guy because I knew I had enough time while he was still down to do that, you know, that type of shit. And it just got to a point where I was like, I'm not going to learn these other stages the same way. I'm not putting myself through this. I would rather, you know, break a fucking light bulb off in my ass.
That's specific. You've thought about this.
That's just how horrible it gets. Like, I don't understand how, like you said, respecting, I guess it's almost at this point a craft, like, to get through this type of shit a certain way, like, you know, the code, the clipping, the frames, the this, that, and the other. Great, man. You know, especially the kudos to the people that figure it out. But it's not my scene, that's for sure. If I see one more person speedrun a Sonic the Hedgehog game, I might just like unsubscribe from everything in Twitch altogether.
You know what I actually like watching are the Out of Bound videos where they go outside the levels and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And they like how things are like hidden like by the developers, or like how like certain things are certain ways. It's interesting to see what happens in games that you've played through.
Or like what they've left unfinished. And
yeah.
That's fucking weird.
So the last part is I have a question for SynthR. We were having a conversation the other day about the differences in consumerism and like products available between like the US and Canada. And it was like fascinating to me. So I don't know, we talked about cereals on the podcast before, but I mean, I guess I knew, but like when you put all this out there, I was just like, holy shit. Like I just assumed, being that Canada is our fucking neighbor to the north, like our fucking American capitalism, like the companies would just want to shove as much shit up there to you guys as possible, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Like you're saying you're like food portions are smaller, like the fast food chains are different. You don't have all the fucking things we have here. So I don't know, like explain a little bit about what you were telling me the other day.
So I don't know how we got to this topic. I think I was just talking about like condiments and going to Walmart. Like when I go over the border, which we don't do very much anymore because our dollar sucks when you get the exchange rate. But when I go over, we usually just go to like Walmart, and you just go up and down all the aisles. You have way more condiments. You have different sizes of certain condiments. So I'll give an example. Like I love Cholula hot sauce, and you have like the big tall bottle. It's like, I don't know if it's a liter, but I'm just going to say it's like a liter or like half a gallon, whatever the fuck it is for your metric or your system of measurement or whatever. But you get that, and that's like $5 in US, I think, or $4. So here that would be like $6 or $7. So to buy that same size one here is like $15. So you have like a huge bottle of it for a fraction of the price. And then you have stuff like I love the jalapeno Tabasco sauce. We don't sell like the huge bottles of it here. It's just like the small, like shitty bottles. So when you go to the States, I can get a huge bottle for the same price as the small one, which is like 4 times the size. And you have like tons of stuff. Like you have cereals that we don't have. Like we don't have Cookie Crisp here. That's the first thing that comes to mind. You guys would always have, like when we were kids, like cool things packaged with your cereals. Like the Ninja Turtle bowl came with like the Ninja Turtle cereal. That we didn't even have Ninja Turtle cereal here. Like fast food, your portion sizes are bigger and it's cheaper. And I was telling you about like the Cheesecake Factory. We just had one open up near me now. I don't know if it's like the first in Canada, but we always used to go to the Cheesecake Factory when we go over the border because you get these massive portion sizes and you can eat like fat fucks for the day and not have to eat for the rest of the day. And when they opened it up here, the portion sizes are kind of similar, but it's way more expensive. Way more
I think
expensive.
you're just calling out the problems with the U.S.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But when I come down to the U.S., it's like, oh fuck, like I get to like.
I mean, we have 5-gallon drums of mayonnaise. You know, like
yeah, we don't. We might have that. It might be at like Costco, which I think is Sam's Club in the States.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Do you have those up there?
We have Costco. It's called Costco.
Here.
Oh, do you? Okay, so I don't know if it's like the same company. I don't know, but that's what it feels like when I go to Costco. They have like everything, like 4,000 rolls of toilet paper that I don't need. But when I go to the States, you guys have that on the shelves and just like your Walmart. But here it's like Walmart will have like a package of like 6 toilet papers. But your Walmarts just carry like everything, like insane amounts of stuff. And then you guys have like tons of sales. And then you can use coupons on top of the sales. We don't have fucking coupons here, really. Our coupons are like 50 cents off. Yours is like, we're having a sale, 70% off. And then with this coupon, you get an extra 30% off. That's 70% off. And it's like, what the fuck? Like you have to do real math. Here, it's just like, yeah, you get like 20% off. And it's just like almost regular price.
But the trade-off is you can get shot in a Walmart here. That's kind of the trade-off. So
yeah.
Well, there's risk and reward. Risk and reward.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel bad about this entire question because I had McDonald's yesterday. So.
Well, I have McDonald's here. You're actually.
Well, the portion control thing's a little.
Okay, so I can go into your McDonald's and for like $4 American, I could eat something that costs like $12 here
and not shit right for a week.
Sure, but I was fed for a few hours. That's all that matters. Like we don't have a dollar menu here. You know,
really?
It's just like basically all combos. You have to buy the combos or a la carte. Like no dollar.
It's like, but see, I just don't understand this. It's like, are they not trying to make money? This is where I get confused with this. It's like, I feel like there's just money laying on the table there. Like, right? Like, cause you were talking about even stuff like you don't have like big sales. Like we always have fucking sales, coupons and shit down here. And it's like, do companies not want to make money in Canada? Like, I don't get it.
No,
it doesn't make sense to me.
You guys have
the standpoint.
You guys have like celebratory sales. Like it's just like, it's fucking fireworks week. It's fucking Shark Week. It's fucking whatever. And you guys have like sale. Us, it's like we have the seasonal sales and we have Black Friday. And
I was just going to ask if you guys had Black Friday.
Yeah, we have all like the major sales, but you guys have fucking sales on top of sales for no fucking reason.
I love that. There's like a couple of companies like that. That Slick Wraps company that I bought that stuff for my console stuff. You know, like my phone and shit. Yeah. And like, it's funny. Like every week, it's just like. It's the second week of July sale.
See,
you're just like just instantly discount your shit all the time. Like, why is there a sale every fucking week? Like, come the fuck on.
I used to work for an advertisement firm for car dealerships, and I was in the graphics department. And I just to see the number of sales and the graphics that we had to design and build specifically for this shit every month. It was just insane. We knew, though, after my 4th year there, I was well seasoned. But up until that point, like after my first year, I knew like the coming month was going to be just ass fuck after ass fuck. And then the next month, it never stopped. And it was just like some fucking redneck Jim Bob who was like, we're going to have a toenail sale down at Joey Jares. You know, we're going to bring in your toenail clippings and we'll give you 10% off of $800,000 TRD. You know, it's like just dumb shit that makes no sense. And you're like, where does that come from? Why is that a sale? Why am I making this art? So yeah, advertisement sales. We love that here.
It's all a psychological trick. Like, oh, it's a sale. I'm getting a fucking deal. I'm getting a discount.
Sure.
But it's like everything's on sale all the fucking time. So
we mark it up so that we can then sell.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. So like even clothes. Like clothes are the same. You guys have sizes that we don't have here. And now that's going to make you feel even worse because let's say I was like a 4 or 5X or whatever, like I would have to go to the States. You cannot buy that stuff here in Canada. It's very hard to find.
So those people just come down here.
Yeah. I guess so. But so that speaks, I think, I guess so.
Quad X in Canada, so I'm going to move to the US where everyone's fat.
It's
problem solved.
I guess so. It's very strange. And I don't know if it's controlled differently up here or if we look at you guys as an example and we're like, nope. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, that's not what we want to be like.
No, we don't. It's just happen.
I still keep coming back to the question of like some of these are American companies. Like, why I don't understand why they wouldn't want to make more money in like other territories. I don't know, especially as like sort of fast food is like very competitive these days. And if you're talking about stuff like clothing and like retail stuff, you know, we were talking about GameStop earlier, like closing down. Like, some of these companies would want to like do more to make more money at this point. You know, I just don't get it.
But it costs money to do more. So I don't know. Like, it might just be the bottom line. Like, we're only willing to do X amount. Doing XYZ will cost even more. Is there a return on investment? Probably not. I don't know.
Maybe you guys just have more self-control than we do as a whole.
But we don't know because we've never been tested. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you should gorge us on like clothing and cheesecake and cereals, and let's see what happens. Let's see if people lose their fucking mind. Like, okay, Black Friday up here. Yeah, we'd be like the second coming of it, right? So like Black Friday, we don't have like stampedes because first of all, our sales aren't that good compared to yours. Your sales are way better. Like, I could see why people are like fist fucking each other to get into Walmart. You know what I mean? Up here, doesn't happen. And there's like a pre-Black Friday sale, like almost days, weeks before, with the same amount of deals. So it's like spread out over time so that they prevent that like mob mentality of like the stores being rammed. It's a completely different.
Here. We like to watch the World Star clips, you know.
You want to be in them. You want to find yourself in the clip.
Watch people getting, you know, just absolutely annihilated for a fucking Furby.
Yeah, we like to lick ice cream and put it back in the fucking.
Yeah, that's the kind of people we breed in the States.
Yeah, we eat Tide Pods and sniff condoms, so we're not the best.
It's just absurd. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. It's just weird. Even at like fast food, even at fast food places, like when I've been down there, and if I go like Taco Bell, we have, I think I've said this before, you'll have like the crazy like Dorito Crunch and all these other like crazy combinations. We don't have that. We'll have like maybe like one thing that comes once a year, but every other time it's just the regular menu.
Yeah, you guys, what was like, that thing from was it KFC that had like it was
like sandwich with like 2 chunks of meat as bun?
Well, there was a double down.
The double down. Did you guys have that?
No. Well, maybe we do now. I don't know. I hate
fattest
KFC.
Invention ever.
Yeah, I hate KFC. It's so gross.
And then now they have that fucking Cheetos chicken sandwich. Have you seen that?
Oh, I've seen that. But you know what I mean? That's an American invention. That's an American invention.
Snowball effect.
But like Burger King had those Cheetos chicken fries, and they were actually pretty good though. I'm not gonna lie. They had like the Cheetos like breading on them. It's pretty fucking good.
I won't even pretend like I don't get the Doritos taco shit from Taco
Bell. Oh yeah, I mean, I can't wait to order this dumb shit from these places. I can't wait for it.
See, so there you go. So that's why they have it, because there's people like you that are like into that garbage. Up here, like,
I still need to go try the fucking Burger King taco. That's what I need to try next.
What? What's that? You gotta be fucking kidding me.
We have tacos at Burger King now. Yeah. I've seen pictures of people like showing them, like opening them up online and stuff like that, and it's just like the most fucking pathetic thing you've ever seen.
I need to look this up quick.
But it's like it's so stupid that I have to go get one at some point. Like, I just have to be a part of the fucking zeitgeist. Like when we had the
this?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And like when they did the fucking Szechuan sauce at fucking McDonald's for the Rick and Morty thing. And people were losing their fucking minds over a goddamn sauce in the McDonald's. Does anyone remember this when they did the Szechuan sauce thing? It was like related to like Rick and Morty. I haven't seen the show, so I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that.
And all these fucking like autistic people in there like flipping out because they couldn't get their fucking Rick and Morty Szechuan sauce in the fucking McDonald's. I don't know.
I have to say, this Burger King taco looks like someone just left it in a restroom sink for about an hour.
It looks like some piece of shit you get out of like a frozen box. Like, it just looks really bad.
Yeah. This looks like there's fucking Alpo in there.
Fucking nasty.
Alpo. Ew, like it's why? Like, why is Burger King getting into the taco game? Like, what business do you have making a taco? None.
Didn't McDonald's get like a hot dog?
Well, burgers and hot dogs, okay. Like, I could see the line there. But if it was like, okay, McDonald's is gonna make like, I don't even have a good example, to be honest. But something so like bizarre, like, oh, we're getting into ramen. like I know they probably sell ramen in the Japanese McDonald's, but like in Canada, like we're gonna make some ramen now at McDonald's. Like, why?
Yeah, fucking look at Japan shit. Like the shit that pops up in like KFCs and McDonald's in Japan is fucking insane.
Yeah, it's completely different.
But sometimes when you go outside of the fucking box with this shit, like when Taco Bell brought those fucking nacho fries, dude, those bitches are fucking delicious. So,
it's a nacho fry, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I don't know.
It's still within the bounds of Tex-Mex.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's in the same like culinary fucking category, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's just so stupid. They're gonna have like a cereal fast food restaurant or something.
It's just proof that Elon Musk also runs Burger King.
Probably. The headline is Burger King wins the taco race to the bottom.
Because I mean, there's like Jack in the Box already had that fucking cornered with shitty fucking tacos, but then Burger King's like, nah, dog, we got this shit.
Like, I don't understand. I don't understand.